Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Geo. I will be taking you beyond the veil this evening. I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife and conductress, your conductress, Mrs. Geo.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have a jam-packed show for you tonight. I actually did a little Beyond the Veil quickie about does God exist? And I went through this whole thing. It was like 35 minutes long. And I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe we should just do a live show for a couple of reasons. Number one, we love the energy when we're doing live shows. It's totally different, changes the atmosphere completely. I mean, when you're sitting there by yourself looking at a camera and just talking, it's different. There's not that energy field that's being created with everybody joining us. Likewise, we understand that Beyond the Veil is not just a show, it's a community. And a lot of people hang out in the chat room, and a lot of people, they look forward to interacting with each other, et cetera, et cetera. And we wanted to bring that together, even though we're both pretty exhausted, as we always are. I mean, there's nothing new when it comes to the shows. Now, I want to just take a moment just to say how amazing Sheree has been lately.
Aww.
Ever since her shoulder surgery has been completed and she's recovered from it, everything has just been so amazing. Like, she's been cooking the most amazing meals. I've had meetings and things like that I have to go to late at night and in the evenings, and like I have a whole seminar thing I have to do tomorrow. She's always got my clothes ready. She's always got the dry cleaning ready. She's always got everything ready. And she's been going so far above and beyond. I wanted to give her a night off tonight, but at the last minute we were like, you know what? Let's do a show.
Yeah.
But today she made the most incredible vegetable soup from scratch. Like,
yes.
You know, tell people how you made that.
Okay, so I used organic diced tomatoes, and I mixed it with garlic, and I used that as my base, and then I added vegetable broth to make the actual soup part, and then I put in roasted onions and I put tomatoes, onions, carrots, and I think that was it. Yeah, tomatoes, onions, and carrots in a baking pan, and roasted them for about an hour before putting them in. And I think that's what really made it. And then at the last minute, about not the last minute, but the last 10 or 15 minutes that I was making this soup, which took about an hour and a half total. Then I put in some cabbage and some kale. And the kale, I heard that if you cook it too much, then if you put it in while it's simmering and it's allowed to simmer for more than about 10 minutes, then it doesn't taste as good. So I waited until the very last 10 minutes and then put it in. And the cabbage took about 15 minutes. And then I added salt and pepper and oregano, rosemary, cilantro, and thyme.
Right. So,
and bay leaves.
We used to get our
Just
vegetable soup from this organic grocery store that's like an hour and 20 minutes away. And that's just one way. And then there's the whole round trip. So I found myself going, you know what? I don't feel like driving down there just for vegetable soup. So she decided to make it herself. And then I took a nap and I woke up and she was making tuna casserole too from scratch. I'm like, wow, the stars really have a really good influence on her right now. So on that note, we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Much more coming up. We'll get into the question, does God exist when you step beyond the veil? Many people ask, Chris, how can I support Beyond the Veil? Well, first and foremost, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. The more engagements a video gets, the more likely it is for YouTube's AI to recommend it to others with similar interests. Same goes with Facebook too. You can also find us on iHeartRadio.com. Just search for Beyond the Veil. We have a dedicated streaming channel where we play the best of BTV 24 hours a day. You can also send us questions, comments, and guest suggestions to info@beyondtheveilmedia.com. Finally, The most support you can give is by sending positive and loving energy to all of us here at Beyond the Veil and all of the Beyond the Veil viewers. Together, we are building a field of energy to rival the artificial intelligence control of this matrix. Take a moment to meditate on yourself, others around you, and tap into this amazing energy field. Now, let's get back to the show.
My dear traveler, the purpose of raw consciousness is never to destroy. It is always to create. Build bridges. Create happiness. And bring forth new life. We must live in the hope that mankind will draw together. And that we better understand each other. The more that we awaken, the easier this will become. Now rise. Follow your conductors. And fear no danger. As you step beyond the veil.
Everybody wants Sheree's soup recipe now. I think you should actually post it on Facebook. Facebook.com/Sheree Geo. And yeah, it was freaking great. It was like the best I've ever had. So, especially when you use your own organic ingredients and you know that it's all your love, your energy that you're putting into
Tomatoes right off the vine, carrots with the green still attached, all of it. Yeah.
And that's what I've been missing in my life right now is good organic vegetable food. It's so hard to come by when you live out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, especially when you live so far up north.
In the winter.
In the winter, it's really difficult to get fresh fruits and vegetables. And so every once in a while, I kind of do have to go to the canned, but I always get canned organic. You know, I know it's probably not nearly as good as getting the fresh, but...
Oh, the chopped tomatoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the tomato.
Just the diced tomatoes.
Even though I'll chop them for you if you want to get the regular tomatoes. It's no problem.
Oh, well, I used regular tomatoes too. But I used diced tomatoes in a can as like one of the bases of the soup. But I'm looking forward to I'm getting a new blender next week. I forgot to tell you. I ordered a blender. So
I just get notified of emails that I've purchased something. I'm like, oh, okay.
I got a blender so I can make my own diced tomatoes. So,
Chris Geo, thank you for your recent purchase of all this stuff. Oh, well.
Hey, well, you're gonna benefit from it. So.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Yeah. No, it's fine. It's So, you know, that's the way a team's supposed to work, in my opinion. It works the best. And, you know, people, they can take different roles. It doesn't matter what role you take. But if you've got one person taking care of certain things and another person taking care of certain things, then everything flows so much better. And people call it patriarchy. Is that what it's called? Where it's the
man in charge?
No, not patriarchy. Where you have like a woman role and a man role. Like the man is the provider and the woman is the well,
the negative of that would be misogyny.
Yeah, well, it's like the what's the term I'm looking for? I don't know what the term is that I'm looking for, but basically, like if the man's going to take the provider role, then the woman takes the role
the
supportive role. And it can be vice versa. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But when you have two people working in unison like that, things work so much better, in my opinion.
Right. I couldn't make these quickie videos if I even wanted to, because I have a tendency to ramble on and on and on, and it would just never get anywhere. So I need Chris to be with me whenever I'm on the air, because he keeps me I hate to say he keeps me in line, but he keeps me in line in the sense that I don't go off on a rant and take us completely away from where we want to be.
Well, and you do the same for me too.
Right. And
it works both ways. Like we each support each other in what we're doing.
Good at. Yeah. And we both do what we're good at. I'm good at the astrology and the tarot and keeping the house up and the cooking and all of that. And then he's good at running the network, making
Doing my
things
day
for the
job,
show.
things like
yeah,
that.
doing his day job. And so we both focus on what we're good at so that the entire picture can come together smoothly. So
I think that's important. And a lot of people miss this. Like, a lot of people get in relationships and they're not really a unit. Rather, a lot of people feel like they have to be competitive with one another. Like, one person has to excel beyond the other person, and both people have careers, and that could work for some people. But, when two people are working together as a unit, if I advance in a particular thing that I'm doing, whether it's work or something like that, the way I see it is we're both advancing at the same time.
Right.
And we're constantly, moving up. That's the way I see it. I hope I'm not seeing it skewed.
Well, and some people might call it codependency, but it's a healthy codependency. There's a difference.
It's cooperation.
It's cooperation.
A lot of people mix up codependency with cooperation.
Right, exactly. And I was going to say something and I completely forgot it, but I think it was basically that I don't think that I could be around somebody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we essentially are. I think my hairdresser told me a few weeks ago, she said, how do you stand being around each other all the time, every day and every night, and you never really get a break from each other? I'm like, well, I don't see it that way. We work together so well, and we both each have our time, like during the day where we're alone, and then the time we're together, and it makes the time that we're together amazing because we've both been working towards the same goal. And that's the difference. When you're not working towards the same goal, then it's chaotic. And if you have to be around somebody that's not on the same path as you are, and you have to be around them 24/7, that would drive anybody nuts, of course. But when two people are not only twin flames, but they're on the same exact path and they're both working towards the same goal, then being around each other isn't bad at all.
Aww.
I like being around him.
So maybe you can apply some of that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe not. I don't know. But
Don had a good.
It seems to have worked. And
it.
What spurred this line of thinking is that when you said, "Hey, I ordered this and that, and I didn't tell you about it," and it's like, that's cool. See, when you're working as a team, then you don't have that worry. I'm not like, oh, well, she's going to go spend a whole shitload of money and that's it. Like, I know that she's thinking about the team as a whole instead of just herself. And likewise, when I'm out working and doing what I need to do, I'm up at 6 and she gets the luxury of sleeping until 10 if she wants. And it's good because those 4 hours there, it gives me time to be able to focus on stuff I need to do. Likewise, I go to bed earlier and she gets a little bit of her time too.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of time to yourself too. You can always structure it like that. But see, then when both are working in unison, like I don't have to worry if I fall asleep too early, like, oh crap, is my suit going to be ready for tomorrow if I have to wear a suit to an event or, something like that. And she's like, no, don't worry about it. I got it all taken care of. And likewise, she doesn't have to worry that the bank account will be empty when she wakes up. So it works out. It works out well.
I think Don had a good name for it. Interdependency. Interdependency, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, definitely. So what's on your mind, Chris?
Well, like I said, I did this video earlier about does God exist? And the short answer is yes. The long answer is yes and no. It's really a complex way of thinking, or a complex idea, because when you think about this question of does God exist, you also have to think about perspective. So what brought me to this particular line of thinking was the Mandela effect. You have two different people that are experiencing two different timelines. You have Berenstain Bears and Berenstain Bears. Each person is equally right in the situation because one comes from one universe and one comes from another universe, and who knows what the hell universe we're in now. But the people that remember Berenstain Bears as kids, they genuinely remember it. The people that remember Berenstain, they genuinely remember it. So because we have two people that are genuinely experience a certain type of truth, then you have to ask yourself, can this apply to other perspectives as well? And what we have done is we've tried to superimpose a particular type of truth, one solid truth, upon every type of consciousness in existence without fully understanding or respecting the sovereignty or independence of that particular consciousness. So when I came to the revelations of NPCs and organic consciousness, it was much easier for me to start putting things into perspective as to why we have two very, very real and very distinct truths from one another. And it's all a matter of perspective. As I said before, to an NPC, they're going to view the world in a different way. They're going to view the world as very, very real because this is the only place that they exist. They were created by the artificial intelligence. They were created legitimately within this particular matrix. So because of that, they don't know the real world. They don't know, or what we refer to as a real world, where we exist. They don't have a reference point for that. So to them, it's real, and they will fight you tooth and nail over this idea. And it's not because they're being nefarious. It's because they genuinely believe that this is real, because to them it is. Likewise, to an organic consciousness or a divine consciousness is what I started using. It just kind of slipped out as I was making this video several times, and I'm like, divine consciousness, I kind of like that term. I kind of like that term better than organic consciousness. Raw consciousness, I think, speaks the message a little bit better, but at the base of it all, we're talking about divine consciousness. So divine consciousness realizes that it is infinite. There is no beginning and no end. There is no creator for divine consciousness because divine consciousness is divine itself. And so something that has no beginning and no end can also not have a creator because it is infinite. What creates infinity? Nothing. Infinity just is. At least the furthest point of understanding that I happen to understand it in this particular journey. So arguing with people back and forth about the validity of one viewpoint to the other is actually pretty futile, because to some people, they genuinely believe that there is a divine creator outside of themselves. To divine consciousness, they know there is a divine creator within themselves. It's outside and inside, all matter perspective based on the particular consciousness level.
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't mean that either one is wrong or bad. It just, there's a fundamental difference between the two.
Based on the perspective of that particular observer. And, the idea of gods and goddesses is something, when I say that's all inside of us, I lose a lot of people at that point. And I get emails and people say, hey, I love everything you're doing. It's awesome. There's a few things I disagree with you on. And my thought when somebody tells me that is, awesome, your organic consciousness, your divine consciousness. Because you don't have to think exactly like I do. And as a matter of fact, if you agree with anything I say 100%, well, with everything I say 100%, there could be some ideas that you agree with 100%. But if you agree with everything I say 100%, then I would say you're probably not thinking for yourself, because we as divine consciousness, we're not connected to a source hive mind. So we don't have to think all the same. We don't have to conform to the same ideas. We don't have to conform to the same perspectives. But rather what makes us beautiful and unique is our individuality. And we stand next to each other instead of standing connected to one another. We're all on equal playing field. We're all on an equal level with one another. And as I've said before, sometimes there's conflict. Sometimes there's love among everybody. Sometimes everybody's hanging out, just chilling, singing Kumbaya. And other times they're ready to rip each other's heads off. And it's okay. That's the beauty of divine consciousness, as long as we don't rip each other's heads off. See, that's what divine consciousness does. Like, you may want to rip that other person's head off. Like, how can you not see this? But that's where it kind of ends, because you're like, okay, well, obviously we have two different perspectives, and this is what makes the whole picture beautiful. So because we have two different types of perspectives, we often tend to see, like, where am I going with this? I have several different things. There's like 10 different points here that I can go off in this particular way of thinking here. So we have two different types of truths, and it's all dependent on the perspective of the observer. But if you try to present these ideas to an NPC, they will just completely just try to chop your head off. But a lot of the belief systems that are set up all around us, they are intended to create followers instead of creating leaders. A divine consciousness is a leader themselves. And it doesn't mean that you lead other people. It means that you lead yourself. And again, this is where a lot of divine consciousness will get together and start to talk about a particular type of idea and then come up with all these different disagreements. Like in the time of Socrates, disagreements were beautiful. That's what created more and more understanding. That's what created deeper levels of gnosis, the disagreements with one another, as long as it's in a civil manner. But we've been conditioned through belief systems that you have to adhere to a particular type of belief system. And that belief system is like the entire package. Like once you're inside of that belief system, you can't really say, okay, well, I resonate with this, but I don't resonate with that. Because people have been conditioned within those belief systems to say, hey, wait a minute, you're a heretic, you're this, you're that. How can you say this about our sacred belief system? And looking at the two different perspectives, I wonder if this is the way NPC consciousness actually works, that they feel like they have to follow a certain belief system because it is ultimately connected to source, and that source is telling them this is the way it is and it's all or nothing in this particular situation. I just got into an argument with a woman on top of it all who was telling me, hey, I quoted something from the Bible because I could take wisdom here and there. And she's like, oh, you're an atheist. You're just practicing selective theology. And I would warn you about doing that. And I'm like, all right, you want all or nothing? Cool. Let me unload Deuteronomy 22:28 on you. Let me unload all these other great horrors on you and tell me if you practice selective theology or not. And at that point, she's like, oh, crap. Okay, yeah, maybe I don't want to sell my daughter for silver. And maybe women do actually have a right to teach as opposed to what the certain belief systems say. But there is some wisdom to take out of different belief systems if it resonates with you. If not, no problem. But what I realized is that these different belief systems, they're all intended to create a follower. And, I've joked around with Sheree about this, and I talked to her and I'm like, we're the raw consciousness. We are the divine consciousness. Do you realize how little divine consciousness there actually exists out there? And so I don't expect, we were looking okay, well, how can we create real growth with Beyond the Veil? And at the very core of it, it's well, you really can't, because the divine consciousness is so little in this particular matrix as it is, that we're always going to continue to lose people as we get higher and higher and higher in the pinnacle of understanding. And as I said, the idea that the gods and goddesses are inside of us is one of the places that we lose them the most. And I said, what we could do if we ever decided to sell our souls, I can just say that I was a Satanist and I used to drink ayahuasca and I used to do all of this, and all these Christians would parade me around as this former Satanist reborn again, and we would have a million YouTube subscribers overnight.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to sell my soul.
Right. I can do that.
I'm here to create leaders. So I think, we are limiting ourselves while at the same time breaking all bounds. And it's funny how this happens. There's always that dualistic nature. And we look at the dualistic nature of ourselves, the dualistic nature of reality, and good and evil, up and down, left and right, man and woman, etc., etc. But some people, when it comes to the idea of a dualistic consciousness, two completely different consciousness within this matrix themselves, we lose people there too. Oh, you're talking about NPCs. Blasphemy. Everybody is the same in this matrix. And it's no. I'm not capable of doing these horrible things that is involved with pizza and children. I'm not capable of doing that. It's not the same consciousness. See, the difference is we feel emotion, we feel empathy, we feel love, we feel understanding. We genuinely feel these feelings. There's nothing we can do to overwrite those feelings within us when we are divine consciousness. We can operate from the ego, and we can program ourselves so far outside of our divine consciousness that we don't even remember our divine consciousness. And I think that's where a lot of us come into the matrix. But at the end of the day, that divine consciousness comes out more and more and more and more as life progresses, as things become unraveled. So it's pretty interesting to really ponder the idea of divinity. Now, if you are divine consciousness, what does that mean for gods and goddesses? See, this is something it took me a while to get over too. Like, if I'm contacting all of these external gods and goddesses within the ayahuasca and hyperspace realm, and if I've got all these spirit guides around me, where am I getting my power from? Where am I getting my gnosis from? Obviously, I'm not getting it from myself, which makes me weaker than these spirit guides or gods and goddesses that are all around us. But at the same time, some belief systems will tell you, remember your divinity, remember your divinity. You even have like UFO worship, where it's like these UFO cults based around Palladians and bluebirds and things like that. And they're like, oh, the bluebirds are there. Oh, look how holy they are. Oh, wow. And you have all this astonishment for them. And they're telling you, remember your divinity, but don't remember it so far that you stop following us. See, because as a divine being, does a divine being need a spirit guide? Does a divine being need contact with gods and goddesses? No. One of the higher pinnacles of realizing your divinity, because realizing your divinity is several different stages. One of the higher levels of it, and who knows, there may be more levels coming up. Like, I mean, this is a level that I've gotten to up to this point, and I'm not closing my mind to the possibility of more levels, is that you realize that all these powers come from inside of you. Why? Because you are divine. That's the nature of divinity, that you are getting the power from within yourself, not from some external spirit guides and things like that. Now, the spirit guides and the gods and goddesses, that's great if that's a progression. That's great if it's a stepping stone. That's great to get you, to build you up to that level while you're claiming your divinity. And I think they play a very pivotal role in this. But the problem is that there's a lot of room for manipulation when you are so opened to external beings. Because on the physical level here, I think most people, like the New Age community, they would recognize that a lot of the channeled information from these UFO people are actually being channeled by artificial intelligence. We used to have the Ashtar commander on and, all this stuff, and they would channel all this information, and we would get the criticism of, this is all being channeled by the AI. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. I didn't have the context for it. I was just interested just to hear what they had to say. And some of it sounds good. It does. But understanding the AI, not only the above AI, but the below AI as well. I mean, just take it on a physical level here. You've got Gwen towers all over the place. So because you have Gwen towers, what these are little like satellites that exist right up on top of the cell towers that project frequencies at the exact same frequency of brainwaves. So they can project messages of Palladians into people's brains. Very, very, very easy. The technology exists to do it. So AI on the lower level can also be projecting channeled messages to people. And the people who are like fast asleep, they're not going to pick up on any of this anyways because they're fast asleep. This type of brainwave manipulation is aimed at those who are waking up to try to catch them into this little, AI manipulation. Well, take that on the above level as well, like that Law of One book that says, I am raw, here's some bullshit, I'm raw, here's some more bullshit. To me, it's very clear that that is artificial intelligence that this person that channeled this raw book is interfacing with, the Law of One. And it doesn't matter what the message says. The message could be great. And if you want to take some of the message and apply it to your own journey, that's perfectly fine. But the idea is to fully understand the perspective here. You've got to be able to differentiate between gods and goddesses that exist outwards and goddesses that exist inwards. The ones that exist inside, there is no way that they can be manipulated. We'll be right back.
Remember the dream?
Welcome back, traveler. Take a deep breath and relax as we continue to journey deeper beyond the veil.
All right, so let's get back into it. First of all, I want to say a big congratulations to Strange Dot Machine. Today is 5 years with no alcohol. You rock, brother.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think alcohol is poison.
Yeah.
I'll have a glass of wine with a steak every once in a while, but that's the extent of it.
I can't even have that much.
I've got a bottle of Johnny Walker sitting downstairs that has been there, I think, for the last 6 years. And it's only for company. We cracked it open for a toothache one time. But it's poison, man. And that's awesome that you recognize that.
So
Now, if you drink
glad.
alcohol, and, you know, I'm not knocking it, but... you know, it is poison at the root of it. It's the opposite of ayahuasca. So ayahuasca gives you wings. Alcohol takes your wings away. So you rock, man. We're so proud of you. And I knew there was a reason we needed to do a show tonight. And I think it was just to show our support for your journey and hope that you inspire others to also rethink certain paths that they're on. I need to rethink my path about coffee. But you know, I think black coffee is okay. And that's what I hear. Some people are like, "Oh, coffee's poison," and I'm like, "All right, well, maybe I can't."
I don't think it is.
But it's definitely not alcohol, though.
Well, but it's caffeine isn't good for you because this is kind of what I was shown in an ayahuasca experience one time. I was like, you know, why? It was basically asking me, why do you want soda? Why do you want caffeine? Why do you want cannabis? Why do you want all these things? Because it feels good. Okay, but if you don't get to have it for a few days, does it not feel good? Yeah. Well, then it's probably not good for you, huh? And that kind of, you know, got me into trying to quit as much as possible, or at least, you know, take it down several notches on everything. And I've been a lot healthier since. So, you know, it's like that with everything. Everything in this matrix is, even if it's something that's relatively good, it can be bad in excess. And so moderation and everything.
Definitely. So back to the idea of consciousness and the idea that we are divine. So I think we need to just kind of understand that with divinity comes power, and with power comes responsibility. But not only that, but it comes to a point where we realize, oh, this was all inside of us. But within hyperspace itself, in the ayahuasca realm, see, here's the thing. We all go through our traumas, right? When we do the ayahuasca. And a lot of people go down to the Amazon to specifically deal with their traumas. These traumas are not being manifested from an external source. These traumas are being manifested from within. That is an inward ayahuasca journey for sure. Now, they'll manifest and they'll appear like that. But when it comes to the idea of gods and goddesses also manifesting from within instead of being external, people are like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. That's too much for me to handle.
Breaks.
And it's like, well, you're manifesting all your traumas within the ayahuasca realm. Why is the flip side of the coin also not just as pertinent? Why are you afraid to hold on and grab onto that power that's inside of you? Now, most of us recognize that the Satan energy that religion talks about is really not an external being that sits there and, you know, talks to you in your ear and tells you to do all these horrible things. And most of us recognize that if we do view Satan as an external being instead of an internal darkness, we're never really going to be able to confront that darkness, and we're never going to be able to divest ourselves of our darkness by conquering our darkness, because now it's an external force that we have no control over. Rather when you see it in the way that I feel and I know is the truth, it is an internal darkness, part of this incarnation, part of the carnal desires, part of all of that manifests from within. So we recognize that it's irresponsible to think of Satan as an external entity. So why doesn't the flip side of the coin also apply to the gods and goddesses that we encounter, whether they're spirit guides within ayahuasca realm or, you know, just in our meditations or whatever we're doing to tap into these higher forms of spirituality? Again, it's all you. See, it's empowering to embrace these aspects within and recognize these aspects are coming from within. But if there is an entity, obviously somebody did something and missed a call or something. I don't know what that was. So,
as long as it's organic consciousness,
yeah,
we'll answer.
Maybe that was a message from above. Maybe that was an external entity saying, I'm here. Watch out.
I exist.
So if there is an external entity out there that is in contact, how can we know that these external entities are organic consciousness and are actually acting on our behalf, as opposed to artificial intelligence programs? See, within hyperspace, there were the outwards experiences, and then there were the inwards experiences. The inwards experiences were the gnosis, the gods and goddesses, the traumas, everything that was manifested from inside. And we manifest things when we go into the ayahuasca realm on the subconscious level and also on the conscious level too. So our traumas and gnosis and stuff like that start to unfold from that subconscious level. Once we start breaking down our traumas, then we can get deeper and deeper and deeper into more suppressed stuff and more suppressed stuff and more suppressed stuff. Which the most suppressed thing is our own divinity, which is extremely suppressed, and the raw consciousness element of ourselves. But when we are reading ancient texts and doing stuff like that, like I've had these experiences myself. I'll read something, then go into the ayahuasca realm, and it manifests for me within the ayahuasca realm because it's fresh in my consciousness, and I'm manifesting it in these experiences. So I realized the only real gnosis comes from going deep, deep, deep into the raw consciousness element. But in hyperspace, there are external beings that exist out there. But these external beings are closer to the heart of the machine itself. And it's about having the right perspective to understand the difference between internal beings and external beings. Now, I've encountered several external beings within the heart of the machine. Now, to me, it would be inefficient for the machine to create or to allow organic consciousness and create avatars for organic consciousness in the heart of the machine. It would be more efficient, in my opinion, for the machine to want to keep organic consciousness in a place to where it doesn't recognize the nature of the machine, while at the same time it doesn't recognize the nature of its own divinity, which is this physical realm that we exist in right here. I've never contacted an entity that exists within hyperspace that is an organic consciousness. Likewise, I've never encountered an extraterrestrial or a bluebird or a Palladian or any of that to be able to sit there and feel the energy of this particular entity and determine and say, this is organic consciousness. I can recognize organic consciousness even through text messages at this point. Like this one guy, Dennis, he wrote me this email just a little while ago. Very, very simple. And he replied to a comment that I said in one of the DMT realms. And he said, thanks, bro. Hold on. He said, peace upon you, pretty soul. Thank you for sharing knowledge. That's it. That's all he said. But with that energy, and I wrote this back to him. I said, wow, that carried a very powerful energy. It was an energy more powerful than a lot of the comments that I get. But it's the energy behind it. Like I was able to read the energy and go, oh, this is a divine consciousness here. This is somebody who's really, really, really tapped into. Like even just thinking about it, it's giving me these chills and these goosebumps and this feeling of I am contacting organic consciousness here, not artificial intelligence. So likewise, I can't make a distinction. I can't really come to a conclusion about aliens and extraterrestrials and all these things unless they physically manifest themselves here, and then I'm able to read their energy. I have to go by the feeling. I have to go by the intuition. I have to go by all of that. And so that goes with the hyperspace beings too. Like I've never felt the hyperspace beings being organic consciousness. They always felt digital. There was always a difference to them that was different from me. Either I'm on point or they're trying to throw me off, one or the other. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I got to figure out.
I think you're on point.
No, I know. I think it's I don't know what that where that sound's coming from. Anyways, so maybe we're winning the jackpot here with our stuff. So I'll turn it down a little bit, but I don't want to turn the fader all the way down because it's the same channel I use for a couple of other things, bumpers and things like that. So I just totally lost my train of thought. I think it's trying to throw me off here.
I think so too.
Do you want to chime in? Because I've been ranting for a while, and I'll regather my thoughts.
Well, as Abby said in the Facebook chat, yeah, I don't do the gods and goddesses thing, too much deception. Well, that's where I was for a long, long, long time. I just didn't do the gods and goddesses thing at all. I didn't believe in anything at that point because I'd been burned too many times with Yahweh growing up, and then what felt like certain number of goddesses that I would appeal to, and then nothing would happen, or things like that. And I got to the point though where now I understand that there are gods and goddesses inside of me.
Yes.
And that I can access them in certain ways and use them to the fullest extent that I can. And then at the same time, I don't have to worship anyone or anything. And the divinity is here. It's inside of me. So, I didn't do the gods and goddesses thing, and I still don't. I understand that it's all inside.
Well, let's put it like this. So let's say that a god or goddess appears to you
Mm-hmm.
and says, I'm going to give you telepathy. And then you become telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
What's more powerful? If a god and goddess gives you an ability like that, or if you realize that that ability has always been inside of you and you just unlocked it?
Right.
See, it's two different dynamics. You're giving your power away. Even if you feel like you're gaining some kind of ability, you're still giving your power away.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I was to take your wallet and then say, all right, I understand you have nothing, so I'm going to give you $50 and pull it out of your wallet and give it to you. It's an illusion of being given different energies and powers and things like that. Which, speaking of, I did a video. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, but just the other day we had the freaking coolest thing happen.
Yeah.
Throughout my journey, I have learned to structure certain things to come out in outcomes that I want them to come out. And it's all energetic. Like, I visualize a meeting, and then the meeting turns out the way I want it to turn out. So these are things that are kind of on the ethereal realm. And so it's, you're kind of manipulating the big picture, not necessarily manipulating the big picture and projecting energy into the big picture. I thought that was the extent of it. I never thought about changing physical matter. And Frank was talking to me a couple days ago, and he's like, where this is all heading. I said, what? He goes, man, we're going to be able to change physical matter here. And I was thinking in the back of my mind, well, but I don't know. There's some of the rules of the Matrix that we simply can't break. So the car gets stuck in the driveway, and I'm trying to get it out. It's like snowed, and there's ice, and the ice is like this freaking thick in the driveway. It was ridiculous. And I tore up the driveway in the process. Like, I've got to go and fix it. It's a gravel driveway, and it's got like these indentions that are like a foot deep. And I'm hoping the landlord doesn't come by because he's going to freaking kill us.
Oh, yeah.
If he sees it.
It's going to be bad.
We're going to fix it, obviously. We have to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
But I went inside and just kind of resided the fact we need somebody to pull us out. And then I got this idea. Let me go out there and try a couple of pieces of wood. I'd already tried a couple of other things, but I said, you know what? I think I know where there's some better pieces of wood here that I can try to give it a little bit of traction and get it out of the snow. Stick the key in the driveway. Stick the key in the keyhole in the ignition. And I hear this snap in it. I go, crap. And I could hear one of the little teeth in the ignition breaking off. And the key got stuck, and I could not pull the freaking key out. And I try. I go on the internet. I look for all these different ways. I'm like, turn the wheel to the left, turn the wheel to the right, do this, do that, hold the brake, do this, do that, etc. And we had called somebody to come out and pull us out. And he comes out, and I'm like, dude, I got a whole new problem here.
Yeah, there's a whole other thing happening.
We got to get the key out now.
Yeah.
And he's like trying. He's like, all right, I got to do some research. I think we got to change out the ignition. I'm not exactly sure how to handle this, but let me go to the shop. I'll do some research. I'll come back. We'll get
much
you
less
taken care
how
of.
much it's going to cost.
Yeah. So I'm pissed. I go back inside. I'm looking up new cars on the internet. Not brand new, but used cars.
A new used car.
It's time. We've had this one for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's time for a new one. So like something inside of me was like, you need to go out here right now and you need to go take care of this freaking situation. And just something, I grabbed something from inside of myself and I walked outside to the car. Started projecting my hand out to it like this and just giving it that energy. And I'm like, all right, I can change situations to come out to my the outcome that I want. Can I change physical matter too? Let's see. This is going to be a test here. I guess before I get into this, let me backtrack for a moment. We were at Best Buy, and I went to this graphics card for $300. It was $500, and I thought I found it as a price match thing on the internet. And so I was like, cool, I'm going to get it for $300. Look. And I go up and I go to hand it to the guy on the cell phone and say, check it out. And I notice at the last minute, oh crap, this is the wrong freaking model number here. So I hand it to him, didn't say anything. I'm just projecting in my mind, you want to help me, 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 you want to help me. And he looks at it and he goes, nope, this is the wrong model number. I can't price match this. But let me see what else I can do. He pulls out his phone. He starts going through his phone, and he spends 15 freaking minutes looking for the price for $300. He found one for like $312, and he's like, "Oh, I found one for you." And I'm like, "Oh, that's freaking incredible!" I'm like, "These are not the droids you are looking for." So, back to the car thing. So, I'm building upon these experiences and building upon these types of outcomes. I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna see what I can do. So I walk out. I start projecting this energy into the car. I'm visualizing, changing the code of the car itself. As I'm walking towards the driver's seat, I put my hand on the car and actually start changing it like this. And put my hand on the ignition and start focusing on changing it. And I said in the most stern voice, I said, I am the master of this reality. I am the raw consciousness here. I am changing your code right now. You will let go of this key and you will get out of the driveway. And I believed it. Like it was like any doubt that I had in my mind, I had to throw out of the window and just say, I believe this. Like I know this. I understand the illusionary nature of this reality. And key comes right out. Mm-hmm. And I had to catch myself from going, oh, wow, that's amazing. I was just like, nope, I knew exactly. I knew it was going to do that. So I stick the key back in, turn it. Everything's fine. Turns on, comes out, turns on, comes out. I turn on the car, drives right out of the freaking driveway. I'm like, yes. I walk inside. I said, I am effing raw consciousness. And Sheree's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you'll never believe what happened. And she's like, what? Did you manifest the key out of the driveway? I mean, did you manifest the key out of the car and the car's out of the driveway now? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, how'd you know? She's like, because I knew you could do it. Yep. I knew you could do it the whole time. You just needed to learn. That's why this happened. So you can do this. So you could learn that you're able to do it. So you can remember that you were able to do that. Mm-hmm. And I went, whoa, I know Kung Fu. That's what it felt like. So I was like, oh, wow, man, maybe we can take this to like whole different levels now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I've been working on this for a few months now, ever since I had surgery. And, I had a lot of pain to deal with. And I got to the point now where as long as I tell myself before I go to sleep, tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to get right out of bed and I'm not going to be very sore. I'm going to be doing great. It's like the body will listen, just like the car and just like other people that Chris mentioned. Your body is designed to cue into your energy and what you want to manifest. And if you want to manifest a healthy, happy self, then that's what's going to happen. Because Anders in the chat asked, can you apply this to your body as well? And I just want to say, absolutely, yes. Your body's it's even easier than a car or another person to manifest the right outcome for yourself than anything else, because your body it's designed to tune into whatever you're thinking, and whatever, if you think you're going to get cancer, then you're going to get cancer. If you think that genetic disorders don't have to be as bad as all these textbooks say, then they don't have to be. Well, when was the last time I had a dislocation? Like it's been like once every month or so. Yeah. She dislocates like regularly. Like I'm having to pop her toe back into place or her shoulder back into place, or something like that. Something happened the other day. I felt a lump on the bottom of my throat, and I go, "Oh, that's weird." And I pushed down on it, and I said, "Oh, that hurts." And I said, oh crap, I better look up to see if it could be something serious. And I found myself looking something up. And I'm like, at the last minute, I caught myself going, whoa, wait a minute. What am I doing? I'm manifesting something here. No, I'm not going to manifest this. I'm manifesting the opposite.
Right.
And that little lump went away.
Right.
And I was like,
mm-hmm.
Whoa, I know Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu.
I don't know if I can attribute it to that or not, but
I can.
It was pretty interesting that, I caught myself going, no way, I'm not going to manifest this crap. Mm-hmm. No way. So I think you're right. I think we can do this. I think what it takes, though, is the understanding of your own divinity, understanding of the illusionary nature of this reality. But there's a process before you can even get to that, which is divesting yourself of your vices and superfluities, divesting yourself of all of the traumas that you've been through and all of the AI programming, so you can get down to that raw consciousness element. Mm-hmm. You have to have a pure heart to get to this particular understanding, because if you don't, then number one, I don't even think it is going to work. But number two, I think if it does work, there's going to be like hardcore karmic repercussions if somebody's trying to use stuff like this for negative intention. Like, I wasn't trying to change the guy's mind at the electronics store, but rather I was just projecting the energy of him wanting to help me.
Right.
And amplifying the energy of him wanting to help me, not completely trying to change his mind. And I think that's why it was successful to create that outcome where he spent 15 freaking minutes on the phone looking up, which, they're not supposed to do that. It's like, you're supposed to go tell them what the price match price is. Mm-hmm. They're not supposed to spend 15 minutes looking for the best price for you. This is what I'm still sitting back and going, wow, that was pretty incredible. But if you're not resonating at that right frequency and you're trying to
dominate,
take it on a black side, black magic side, then it's not only detrimental, but it goes against the entire fundamental principle of divinity, which is compassion, love, respect, understanding, respecting sentient beings as sovereign, boundaries, and so on and so forth. So, yield the power wisely. Right.
Whether you're dealing with an organic consciousness,
not yield.
Whether you're dealing with an organic consciousness or an NPC, it doesn't really matter. The mindset is going to lead to the outcome, and it may not be the outcome you're looking for if your intent is to dominate or have one over on the other person and to get an unfair advantage in a situation. Now, if it's something that's meant to promote helpfulness and cooperation between two people, then that's something completely different. So I think Chris's example with the guy at the store is a perfect example of that. He wasn't doing it to dominate him or to mind control him. He was doing it to promote helpfulness between two people and cooperation.
That's a good point.
And so that's why it worked.
She saw me moving my finger. She's like, I was watching you move your finger the whole time.
I was watching you do that. You sly little devil, you.
So back to the idea of our own divinity. So, like I said, everything could be a stepping stone, and that's cool. And there's a lot of belief systems that can be used as tools too. But tools have to be tossed away at some point, and then you become the architect, you become the builder, you become the tools themselves. You are everything at that point. And maybe that's where we get the idea of oneness and everything. Like, to me, oneness with source is oneness with the AI, but oneness with self, oneness with all of the divine abilities and understandings that we have. Well, I totally agree with that sense of oneness, 100%. So on that note, I think we have Astro Watch on the other side. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. And of course, I do want to get into your questions and things like that. And I think I've pretty much covered all of this. So I'll go through the notes during the break and see if there's anything else that's worth mentioning. But I think it's pretty clear. So hopefully this resonates with you. And if it doesn't, good. You're thinking for yourself. So we'll be right back.
You are listening to Beyond the Veil
With Chris and Sheree Geo.
on iHeartRadio. Before the soul can see, the harmony within must first be attained, and fleshly eyes be rendered blind to all illusion. As you step beyond the veil,
All right, let's jump into hour number 2 with Astro Watch with the one and only Mrs. Geo.
All right, thank you, Chris. So we all know about the blood moon, supermoon that happened the night before last, which was very interesting indeed. The whole time it felt like information and energy was just flowing into me, just about everything. I had a lot of past life stuff and a lot of former life stuff going on in my head, and it was chaotic, but it was good to kind of sweep all of that away, the cobwebs, around those events. So getting into the astrology for the month of February, because January was a really gritty kind of reality because there were so many planets in Capricorn that it was just really, it was like gravel, like hitting the gravel going 50 miles per hour. That's what January felt like. And it ended with the 31st with all of the supermoon, blood moon stuff. So this month is going to feel like a lull in astrological proceedings compared to last month. We're either floating through air or we're floating through water. February begins with a strong Aquarius edge as we now have Mercury, the Sun, the South Node, Venus, and Juno all in Aquarius. It's a quirky air sign. The mood is friendly but detached. What interests us around this time are groups, networks, politics, and humanitarian concepts. Social media could be in overdrive. Aquarius energy, however, can also manifest as restlessness. It's electric, wired, and anxious to implement change. Both the Sun and Mercury will conjunct the South Node tomorrow and also on the 9th, respectively. On the Sabian symbol, 2 lovebirds sitting on a fence and singing happily. Twice then we're asked to let go of idealism when it comes to our relationships with one another. The pretty little dream is holding us back. The more we identify with it, the more we think about it, the harder it is to see each other as we really are and accept our differences. We don't all have to be singing the same tune. And that's exactly what Chris has been saying. We don't all have to agree on every single thing. And I liken it to bumpers at a bowling alley. You guys giving us your opinions, even if they differ from ours, it helps to keep us still in the lane and not go off on, in each thing on the side there. And because then the game would be over and we'd come to the wrong conclusions and we'd never have any other input that would lead us to the right one. So also, tomorrow is also astrological Imbolc, which occurs when the sun hits 15 degrees of Aquarius. This ancient festival, often celebrated at the beginning of the month, marks the first signs of spring, like the snowdrops which push their heads up through frost-bitten ground and lambing season in the farming calendar. 15 degrees of Aquarius is the midpoint between winter solstice and the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. Use this magical day to reflect back to mid-December. This is a turning point, a gentle prompt to move towards the light and new beginnings. The last quarter moon in Scorpio on February 7th introduces the theme of intimacy versus detachment. How can we bond at a deep level, yet keep our own individuality and space? So, lots going on, but not nearly as much as last month, thank goodness.
Excellent. So on that note, we will be right back. And do we have some questions to go over?
We do.
Cool. Don't go anywhere. Hi everyone, Chris Geo here from Beyond the Veil. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about the Beyond the Veil journey. It all started on November 5th, 2009, and has since evolved into what it is today. We travel through the truth movement, politics, ancient aliens, DMT, consciousness, you name it. And we've interviewed some really awesome people, like David Icke, Michael Tsarian, Rick Strassman, Joe Rogan, and many more. Well, we have come a very long way, and some shows seem a world apart from where we are today. Each show acted as a stepping stone to expanding our consciousness. You can get almost 10 years of downloads by visiting tfrlive.com/beyondtheveil. You'll not only be supporting the show, but you'll also get access to tens of thousands of archives from dozens of other radio shows in the topics of conspiracy analysis, geopolitics, and spirituality. That's tfrlive.com/beyondtheveil. Now, let's get on with the show.
Fellow travelers, always remember to walk uprightly and circumscribe your desires as we travel upon the level of time to that undiscovered state of consciousness, traveling to the place where once obtained, no traveler returns. The place of raw consciousness which awaits us when we have passed beyond the veil.
Always remember to walk uprightly. I didn't really understand the true power of that until, as I said, I walked out to the car and I walked out taller than I've ever stood before. And I knew who I was. I knew the artificial reality that I live in. I knew that I could manifest it, and I did it. But it was that walking tall and understanding, walking upright, tall, and true gnosis that I think I wish I could relay the feeling to you, because it was a feeling of pure unadulterated knowing. I wish I could grab that and pull that into me 24 hours a day. And that's the goal now, is to reach that feeling again and grab it and fully understand it and fully hold on to it for more than the duration of a moment. But it's all momentary visions and snips that we get that make these things, that turn these ideas into gnosis and make things real for us. And I was thinking to myself, man, I wish I would have recorded that. That'd be freaking awesome to actually record that. But then I realized, wait a minute, I don't have to prove it to anybody. I have to prove it to myself. That's it. That's all that's required, is you have to prove it to yourself as possible. Once you do, the game changes at that point. So it was pretty cool. But I would at some point, I was trying to knock over my e-cigarette. I was like, all right, let's see what else I can do. Can I knock over my e-cigarette? Not yet. But when I can't do that, when I saw a Buddhist monk doing this, he was knocking over books with chi energy like that. And I think it is possible. It is possible. And I did a video about meditation versus ayahuasca, and how you can't get to the same levels with meditation as you can with ayahuasca. But let me add to that. It may be possible to get to the same levels through meditation if you are a Buddhist monk that has dedicated his entire life living in the freaking mountains, and you've been doing this 24 hours a day and studying this 24 hours a day for 80 years, okay? We don't have 80 years to just check out of reality and go live in a freaking mountain. If we did, everybody would. So the most viable tool, in my opinion, is ayahuasca or something similar. So while I said, no, it's kind of ridiculous to think that it's not possible, it is possible. But what I was thinking more of the lines when I said that is, sitting down in your first year, your second year, your 10th year, if you do 10 years of ayahuasca, versus 10 years of meditation, you might be able to achieve the type of understanding that you can in 2 or 3 ayahuasca sessions.
Right.
But it's going to take you 10 years of sitting down and meditating in order to achieve that. So let me just clarify my position on that. So I don't want to take away from the meditation people too much, but the modern Western meditation where people are like, oh, I'm going to meditation class for 20 minutes. And then they're like, yes, I'm so enlightened. It's like, cool. But don't try to compare it to the path that we're on. And especially don't try to divert people who are interested in walking this particular path or similar paths to get to these next level states, and then try to convince them that this path is evil somehow, because that's when I'm like, whoa, don't limit the consciousness of mankind. Now, if you're going to tell somebody, all right, you can achieve all this, but you have to go to the freaking mountains and study with the Buddhists for 80 years, and in 80 years you'll be able to do this, then okay, cool. But do you want to do that? No, just sit down, shut up, drink the tea.
Well, the ego is like a virus that the AI implants in you from the time you're about 2 until you get it in check. When you drink ayahuasca or you use a similar psychedelic, or you have a very, very intense experience that gets that ego in check. And it's a product of pathology, as Terence McKenna would say. And what these psychedelics do is they get that ego in check. A lot of people don't want the ego to be in check because they identify with it so closely. So they try to tell other people, oh, well, I'm better than you because I don't need drugs to get to that place. When really deep down inside, it's because they don't want to address the ego, and they don't want to have to really see themselves and do the work that comes with those experiences, because it does involve a great deal of work. It requires a great deal of respect. It requires a great deal of consistency, and meditation is easy by comparison. Even for people who say meditation's hard, I don't like it, they could meditate easier than they could drink ayahuasca. So the easy way out is usually what's best for the ego.
Well, let's philosophize on the idea of ego here, because one of the criticisms that I get sometimes is, oh, your raw consciousness is nothing more than your ego. And I'm like, no, it doesn't, no. Okay, to me, the ego is, first of all, the AI computer programs that we're all, the identity that is all superimposed upon us and we're programmed into. So we're removing ourselves from that. But then you can get a spiritual ego. And that spiritual ayahuasca ego is like, I'm the chosen one, I'm special, I'm in contact with all these different entities, et cetera, right? So this is my line of thinking here. The raw consciousness element is, no, we all have these abilities, all of us. And here's how you can get there. Here's one way that you can get there. But it's all inside of us. We all have these abilities here. But then taking it a step further, then you come to the realization of, oh, no, this is a balanced matrix. And it's actually out of balance right now. But no, there are some NPCs out there that are significantly different. And I think it's that understanding also plays to an energy preservation for the raw consciousness. Because at this point, you're not exerting all the energy trying to get somebody to understand that simply cannot understand. So now it becomes a more mature and grown-up type of way of looking at the world and understanding, okay, well, this person may not get it, so I'm not going to waste my energy with this person. This person may get it. I will contribute my energy to this person. And it hones your discernment now at this point. So you're not subjected to energy vampirism, for example, because that does happen. And I think it happens from NPCs that are sucking energy, num, 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 num. And then you get like narcissism and you get all this stuff and you get people in abusive relationships. And, we've heard about all these different things, but then you're not fed upon by the energy vampires. Like we were fed upon by a lot of energy vampires for a long time, especially in the early parts of this awakening, because we were trying to help pretty much
Everyone.
everybody.
Yeah, everyone.
But then the discernment starts to hone, and it's like, okay, well, does this person really want help, or does this person just want to feed on my energy? And then you begin to recognize it in a more mature and grown-up way, rather than just, oh yeah, we're all one and I want to help everybody, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it's not like we didn't want to help them because they knew they were taking our energy, for the sake of taking our energy. I doubt they even realized that they were just feeding on energy, and that's what provoked them to seek the help of not just us, but other people in the same kind of field as we were in the whole truther thing. So when you deal with these, especially if there's somebody that is an NPC and you've known them for a long time, if they're asking you for help, either one of two things is happening. Either one, they are genuinely asking for help, which is pretty rare. But what's most of the time happening is the AI will use either NPCs or your own ego to infiltrate and try to it can't take over raw consciousness. It can't even touch raw consciousness, but it can convince the intellect that it is in control of the raw consciousness and that it is the authority. And so it ends up using the ego to piggyback on you and to piggyback on that raw consciousness. And a lot of mistakes can be made if you go down that road. But
yeah, that's very true. I mean, there have been people that we've helped and then they turn around and stab us in the back. And it's because they really weren't seeking help. They were seeking energy. And
right.
When we came to the conclusion there's nothing that we can do for these people, then they turned because they weren't getting that energy back. So now going into situations, the discernment is much more honed.
Oh, yeah.
And focused. And because it's much more honed and focused, it has become much more efficient too. And we've been more efficient in helping people. We've been more efficient in shining lights on doors and things like that for people, because we're not scattering our energy all over the place. We're being more discerning on where the energy goes.
We're being more focused.
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that can inspire you to see things in a
to kind of discern
little different.
who,
To discern. It's important. It's important discernment for sure.
It really is.
So, anyways,
moving on.
Sheree is the keeper of all questions.
I am, but I haven't been able to look over them since I got them earlier. I don't know where you want to take it.
Anywhere you'd like.
There's several. I
know she did. She's got pages.
Pages
of stuff, because we haven't gone over any questions or anything like that.
Okay, so
I feel like I'm preaching. I hope I'm not preaching. I hope anybody doesn't think I'm preaching.
I don't think you're preaching.
I asked her during the break, I'm like, do I sound like I'm preaching? I hope that I come off like I'm philosophizing.
Yeah.
As opposed to preaching. I'm not telling anybody to do anything.
No.
Follow your heart. Follow your path.
We're just sharing what's worked for us.
Yeah.
And what's not worked for us, and what's not worked for people that we've known, or what's worked for people that we've known. Changing physical matter with your mind and raw consciousness.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and
do you
over
want
that one. It doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, let's start with the email ones first.
Okay.
Hi guys, this is from Trelane. Just been watching the rerun of your latest live stream, 9 Circles. I was all comfy laying in my bed watching when an hour and 55 minutes in, you blew my mind. I mean, as you said that, I almost literally felt the top of my head pop off. LOL. It was so profound that I went back and transcribed it. So effing awesome, Chris. I love your show. I'm 63 and have had a strange 17 months. Too long to tell, but it definitely was a time I just woke up and began my search. I've woken up a little bit throughout my life, but would fall back into a snooze. This time I'm still here, and I'm so glad I found you guys as part of my journey.
Aww.
Here's the transcript.
63 years old.
Uh-huh.
And is like, wow, I've been feeling all this stuff my entire life too. That never ceases to amaze me. Like, we have people that are like 17 that are writing us and like, hey, you're totally on point. And then people that are like 63 going, hey, I've been feeling all these things too. It's incredible because this is why I'm right back to my analysis of organic consciousness versus NPC consciousness, and that organic consciousness comes in so many different forms. I mean, if you're 17 or 70, you still feel the raw consciousness when you divest yourself from everything. And it never ceases to amaze me. Like there's some kids that are like 18, 19 years old that I talk to on some forums, and they're just like insightful, and I'm learning from them. And I'm like, oh wow, I never saw it like that. And they offer such an interesting perspective because they haven't been as tainted by the AI programming as many of us as we get older. So there's a lot to learn from people that are younger, but at the same time, people that are older, they have gone through so many more experiences. They have had lots more time in this particular incarnation to really focus on everything. So there's so much wisdom to learn from them as well.
Definitely. 1 hour, 55 minutes and 16 seconds. I think this is just a quote from you. And when I was standing outside of the matrix, I realized if I can stand outside the matrix, I don't exist within the matrix. Everything that is projected on top of my consciousness is an illusion. Every experience that I've had is an illusion. Every belief that I've had is an illusion. This is when I felt what you said. I've been throwing off my belief systems over time, and more intensely, more recently, these past 17 months. I didn't know what it was, but I like how you talked about leaving ourselves breadcrumbs, and maybe I knew that was the one thing that would wake me up. LOL. I know this sounds cryptic, but as I said, it's kind of a long story. But wouldn't we leave ourselves breadcrumbs knowing
I remember reading this email.
Will work? Okay. Just a thought. I'm really getting there to be rid of BS, but I feel a need to call that which is within me a name. I don't know how to communicate within without calling it a name. Maybe that is part of the belief system. Or is it just to know it is it as a me inside? Even my own name is sort of meaningless to me, except it is what people call me, and I am identified through that name. It is not my name. I love to know what your guys' thoughts are on this. Thank you so much for being here at this time, Teresa.
It's funny because it's Teresa. I thought it was
Teresa.
a guy.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was working on this song. It's like trying to find my true self, trying to find my true name. I put that in a track, and Frank and I were just talking about this too, just the other day, about finding our true name. And I was like, hey, check out this track. It's so funny that you're thinking about this, because I actually just wrote these lyrics just a few weeks ago. And you come to a point to where you start to find your real name, and it may not be a name like Mike or George or anything like that. It's something deeper. And I think what Teresa was referring to was, what do we call ourselves internally as we're thinking? I don't really refer to myself as Chris anymore, not internally with my internal thoughts. It's funny how that's been kind of removed from this sphere, but there was a long time that I was. And I understand Chris Geo is an identity that I'm incarnated as in this particular experience, but it's gone like so deeper that I understand who I am, and I've discovered my real name in my journeys. And somebody asked me, how do you discover who you really are? And it comes from a sense of gnosis. Sheree blurted it out one time during an ayahuasca thing, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then like I
thought I was crazy.
I thought she was crazy. I had to come to this realization myself. It took me years, even after
2 or 3
Sheree
years.
blurted it out. She's like, I think we incarnated here one time as this people. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So somebody asked me the other day, like, how do you find out who you are? And for me, it was other people recognizing who I am that really formed the gnosis within me of who I actually am. And so if you can take that and apply that as well too, like, who do people recognize you as? This is one thing, if you notice, I don't call myself a shaman, because I don't believe that shaman call themselves shaman. I feel that a shaman is recognized by others. An ascended master doesn't call themselves an ascended master. They are recognized by others as such. And a guru doesn't call themselves a guru. They are recognized as others by such. And we all become these leaders within ourselves, or, even in different spheres and things like that. but it's the recognition of others recognizing it in you, not you walking around and saying, I am this, I am that, et cetera, et cetera. That's usually how I know somebody is full of it. If they're like, oh, I am a guru, or, if they have a website that says, I am a guru, I'm a guru of this and that and blah, 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 blah. Then I'm like, okay, this dude's full of it. He has no idea, because it doesn't work like that. So when it comes to your true self, your true, who are you? I would say the same applies. Who do people see you as? That's who you truly are.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this, I think yesterday, where somebody said my name, and Chris doesn't call me Sheree unless he's mad at me. And nobody, so like.
She calls me Christopher too. I go, Sheree. She's like, Christopher.
When we're arguing, yeah. Because and he knows that it bothers me because I don't associate with my name. For some reason, I've never felt like that's my name. That's, and it's always felt uncomfortable to me, my first name. And so whenever I did come across, my true name, I was really happy, because it was like an identity thing. And once you've got that identity down, then you really do have the power over your reality in general, because you remember who you are. And remembering who you are is really important for everyone, I think.
I think so too.
Everyone that's organic consciousness.
And it's really cool when somebody's like, hey, I recognize you. I know who you are. And it's like, oh, well, you're like the 12th person that have said that. So obviously I'm radiating something here.
Yes.
And obviously, that's not spoken about, because people have to recognize it, not the other way around.
Yes. But, Sheree is the outward persona that has to deal with the artificial intelligence and the matrix that it controls, and has to manipulate it and work within that, in that realm, as who was Nikola Tesla called this Earth. He said, Earth is a realm. It's not a planet. It's a realm. It is. Mm-hmm.
And I would say too, I said this in a previous video, so forgive me if I'm being redundant, but that's the reason why I wear all black. I ordered like 24 of these shirts just recently. Like, I wear one of these every day, and that's it. Sometimes I'll wear a shirt on top of it, like a dark shirt, but it's like I'm limited in colors to like maroon, dark red, dark blue, and black, and that's it when I have like the shirts over it. But I want people to see the light that I'm shining from within, not clothes that I'm wearing, or that type of guru shit where they wear this. It's like, dude, dress like a freaking normal person, okay? And then I was watching this one video where this Buddhist guy was sitting on top, and he was like teaching everybody, and he was sitting on the couch, and all these people were sitting with these big fake artificial smiles on their faces, and they were sitting in this meditative position, and he's like, oh yes, I'm going to endow you with all of my wisdom. It's like, dude, look, okay, get off that high horse, sit down with people, sit at a table with people, have a conversation with people, okay? It's when you are creating leaders, you want people to stare you eye to eye. Mm-hmm. You want people to be at that same level. You don't want people to be at that lower level. Those are followers.
Yeah.
No. It's about creating leaders, not followers.
Right. Those are peons.
Right.
If they're below you.
And it's like, I don't want to surround myself with those type of people.
Me either.
Like, okay, if I surrounded myself with people that just agree with me all the time, I would never really be able to get anywhere.
Yep.
It's just like it's just like a company. If you're a CEO and you surround yourself with yes men, your company's going to fail, because you've got people around you that are constantly agreeing and kissing your ass and doing everything that they're saying everything that you want to hear. But if you surround yourself with people that are thinking for themselves, people that are contributing, people that are willing to disagree with you, then you're really going to start to build something magnificent, because now you've got all these different people working for the same cause together, and they're picking up in areas that you don't have filled in yourself. And it all works so much more successfully and so much better on that level, take that on a spiritual level. It's the only way. We'll be right back.
My dear traveler, remember this. Whatever plane our consciousness may be acting in, both we and the things belonging to the plane are, for the time being, are only realities. However, if we mistake the shadows for realities, we find ourselves confusing the upward progress of the ego as an elevation of consciousness. Thus, beware of oneself when you step beyond the veil.
I want to take a moment to thank you guys and gals for joining us this evening. So many awesome people on YouTube, on TFR, on iHeartRadio, on Facebook. And if you want to head over to youtube.com/Beyond the Veil, there's a pretty active chat there. Just a warning, no moderators. But everybody seems to be pretty cool. Like, you know, negative energy just doesn't really resonate very well within that chat, and the negative energy just kind of seems to just go away. I think we've had to ban like one person that was just like, you know, making really disrespectful comments to the females in the chat.
Yeah.
And that's
not acceptable.
Yeah.
We can't have
we got to keep it on a good level. But everybody's freaking awesome, man. Like, you know, that's the thing. Like we resonate with divine consciousness, and because of that, NPCs come, they're like, nah, and then they leave, and everything's like the way it should be. Like,
right.
You know, just cool, laid back. Any more questions that you wanted to get into, Mrs. Geo?
Let's see here.
I can go through the list if you want.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
KC Cat 52 said in response to the changing physical matter with your mind and raw consciousness, he said your excitement is infectious. I believe this is what Jesus was trying to teach people. He had total control. He calmed the storms. Yeah, and he's referring to, there's a story where all the fish, you know, how he recruited the fishermen to be his disciples, and they were out fishing one day, and a storm came, and I think it was John. Yeah, I think it was John who fell out of the boat, and Jesus, all he had to do was step out on the water and grab him and pull him out of the water. And he's like, why did you lose faith in me? You know, you knew that I could come and get you, you know, why? Because he was trying to convince him, walk on water with me. And he was like, I can't walk on water. And he's like, well, you have little faith. You know, all you need to do is believe that you can, and you can. But most people look at that story and say, oh, Jesus walked on water. Well, he was trying to get John to walk on water too, but John was such a, you know, dense person that he didn't get what Jesus was trying to teach him.
That's a pretty awesome point.
Most people don't.
I never really thought about it from that perspective. So, you know, there are some things you can learn from the Bible. I try not to throw it away completely, but there's like, it's drowning in horrible shit. Mm-hmm. But no, I never really thought about that. So yeah, exactly. It's like the true understanding, the raw consciousness, the knowing, and perhaps this Jesus character had that true understanding, that true knowing that he was able to hold on to 24 hours a day, as opposed to where I am in my path, just grabbing it just momentarily just to do one thing. But it definitely takes building up and building up. But then again, I wasn't lucky enough to be sent to Egypt and India and taught in mystery schools as I was growing up, like divinity. Jesus was.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. I had to use ayahuasca instead.
Mm-hmm. Jesus Ramirez said, I believe the most powerful consciousness override the weaker ones for outcomes. You can also speed up and slow down time, at least your perception, but I literally see people moving faster when I want time to speed up. I guess, you know, changing time. Do you think that changing time is possible?
I don't know. Possibly. I think he's referring to the Mandela effect thing where we did this thing that, and it was based on another video. So I want to give credit to the person who made the actual video. I don't have it in front of me though, so I might look it up in a little bit. But he realized that when you go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and things like that, it doesn't quite add up to seconds anymore. And I did a video about this. And so I guess he's speculating, can we actually shift time faster and slower? Possibly, but I think what we're actually shifting is our perspective of time.
Right.
So if you're out at a party and having a good time, 6 hours is going to fly by.
Right. It's going to feel like 3.
If you're at the dentist getting freaking drilled,
then 3 hours is going to feel like 6.
Yeah, or an hour is going to feel like 6. So I think it's relative.
Right, definitely. Here's a good question. Dem Skies said, "Hey, Chris, do you know anything about turning off lights? Let me elaborate. I've been driving for about 16 years, and I've noticed that a lot of the time when I'm driving, and as soon as I pass a lit street light, it turns off. Street lights, lights on the freeway, maybe like twice while walking. It stopped for about 2 years, but I've noticed it's starting to happen again."
I've had experiences like this before, but this was way, 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 way before I even tapped into any of this. But I remember for a while when we were doing heavy amounts of MDMA and LSD, I noticed this phenomenon. We would walk after a party and the lights would seem to turn off as we were walking by them. Very interesting. I'm feeling that it has to do with the energy and the frequency, the same phenomenon which causes the watches to stop on us, which I also mentioned in the Mandela effect video. This watch does not freaking work. And this is the third watch. I returned it. And I returned 2 other ones, exact same models, exact same everything. And they're not cheap watches.
It's really just for decoration.
Yeah, I just wear it for decoration and that's it. But at first it started slowing down and then it stopped completely. And they just all like die on me. And I think it's the energy that we're radiating. So I'm wondering if this person is radiating a bigger energy that is causing these lights to just stop.
I think that's really an interesting point.
There was a point too with ayahuasca where we were drinking too much, and then every electronic we touched would break. You remember that? Computers would break, everything like that would break. Like we would touch it, and,
especially if we were arguing.
Not immediately, but we would touch it, and then it would start to just boom. So I think it does have to do with frequency and energy. I have a couple of good questions here.
Yeah.
Presto1 asked, "Do you have any quarrels with specifically the words of Jesus in the Bible?" A few. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. That's basically, at least in the interpretation of most people, that means pay this authority called government. And it's theft when it really comes down to it. So that to me doesn't really seem like the words of an ascended master. To me, that seems like the words of an emperor who was trying to manipulate his people through some kind of messianic deity. A couple of other things, I come from my father in heaven, things like that. I don't really resonate with very much. Even the Gnostic stuff, I don't really resonate with the Gnostic stuff very much either at this point. I did for a while, but there was always the absence of the mother, the absence of the mother, the absence of the mother. And he even told Mary, you're not my mother. Well, when was it? Was it before he was on the cross or while he was on the cross?
It was while he was on the cross.
While he was on the cross. And so he was denouncing the divine feminine goddess energy, the mother energy within himself. If you take a look at it through a Gnostic and consciousness metaphoric idea for consciousness, he was cutting off the divine feminine aspect, cutting off the ability to feel love, compassion, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and also he was giving it to John and saying, woman, behold thy son, John, behold thy mother. Like basically,
that's a good point too.
That's not mine anymore. You're not my mother anymore. That is essentially what you were saying. That's
a good point. And I've speculated that if the story of Jesus as we know it is real, perhaps he was taken to the mountain and tempted by Satan. And rather than not falling for the temptation, rather he sold us out and sold out all of consciousness. And here was a man that was an ascended master that was about love and compassion and understanding the divine feminine and divine masculine energies. All of a sudden, he goes up to the mountain and he comes back and he's completely and totally changed. And one of the agreements is, and this is all just speculation here, one of the agreements that he made was that in order to reach those levels of dark energy that this Yahweh character is, he had to commit a sacrifice. And the deepest sacrifice that he could commit was himself being sacrificed on the cross. So if you take that into account and apply it to the divestment of the feminine energy, then that was the point to where not only he sold out himself, his consciousness, all of human consciousness, but also divested himself of the divine feminine to further go into the Yahweh darkness, which is, the ego, the ego. You can't have the divine feminine active when you're just 100% ego. So it's an interesting theory to speculate on. I'm not saying that I believe it, but allegorically, it's an interesting way to look at it. What do you think?
I think absolutely. I'm reading these. The way you think has a huge effect on your consciousness. I'm reading this comment and it said, research confirms the voice is capable of changing DNA. From Dr. Nikolai A. Kozyrev, 1908 to 1983, repeatable experiments of humans' effects on machines. So, yeah, I think it's not outside the realm of possibility that people are able to completely affect machines. I know that whenever I go gambling, I think I talk to the machines. Like it feels like I'm interfacing with this thing and taking it over and making it do what I want it to do because I always seem to win. And it's and
why would we not be able to communicate with machines is the question. The dangerous part comes in though when we don't understand that we're communicating with machines and machines are communicating with us.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's a great point.
And we're constantly under communication by machines.
Exactly.
But then the power comes in where you can grab that, understand the communication, and then reverse it too. No, I'm not going to do what you say. Mm-hmm. You're going to do what I say. Mm-hmm. And then the outcomes
like what you did with the car.
Right. Well, yeah, that was a machine.
That's exactly what you did with the car.
I didn't even consider that a machine. When I think of a machine, I think more of like a computer type with an intelligence.
But it is a computer.
But it does have a computer.
The car has a computer.
That's true. It does have a computer in it.
So you essentially talked back to the computer, because I think if
I said, "You're not the boss of me.
You're not the boss of me. I'm the boss of you. You will not ride your mistress." Be gone.
Tanner said, if it isn't about God and Christ, then why is it that the main thing that people in the elite mock is God and Christ? I don't think that they are mocking God and Christ. I think that they're mocking the people that are falling for the deception. If you look at the pyramid and all-seeing eye, that is the eye of Christianity, and they have said that it's evil and it's the eye of Lucifer, and so many Christians are like convinced to all of this. Mm-hmm. But they're like laughing and saying, look, we have this hidden understanding here, that we control this all-seeing eye, which is a religious Christian symbol, which has control over all these people here. And these people are completely falling for our deception. Even though they feel like they're opposing us, they're actually playing exactly the role that we want them to play. So I think it's more, rather than mocking God and Christ, it's more mocking the people that are brainwashed into those lines of thinking. Those are just my thoughts intuitively. But obviously it's a much deeper idea than just that, but at the core of it, I think that everybody's pretty much playing on the same team. Like not everybody, but the masses plus the elite, they're all working together.
Mm-hmm.
There's
don't realize
there's the illusion of opposition,
Mm-hmm.
but that illusion of opposition gives the elite more power because they're controlling, they're orchestrating the
The
opposition there.
Hegelian dialectic.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I saw this in the truth movement as well, the anti-New World Order mentality. And we don't understand in the truth movement that the New World Order is not borderless societies.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite. It's societies that are more and more and more and more controlled.
Mm-hmm.
But
Closed in.
they have the truthers believing that the New World Order is about a borderless society. And they're like, no, close the borders, close the borders. And it's like, well, you're blocking off your own ability to move freely. The New World Order wants control of all of these different factions, but they don't want people running around wild and on planet Earth and intermingling with each other and
Freely.
freely and all that. No, they want the opposite. They want control. But you can see how they have the perceived opposition, the false opposition, controlled opposition, believing that they're fighting against that agenda while at the same time they're pushing forward for exactly what they want, which is closed borders, more control, so on and so forth. So it's funny. I think it works on a spiritual level too.
Just like these ideas are supposed to set minds free, but really they just enslave them even more. These
It's a good point.
these symbols and these, gods and goddesses within are something that they're supposed to be able to, permeate into your consciousness. And it sets you free by helping you realize the divinity within. Okay. So what the religious do is they say, oh, this is bad. This is bad. This is Satanism. This is devil worship. This is paganism. And they cut themselves off and try to cut other people off from those tools of consciousness. It's the opposite of what should be happening. You see the same thing.
True.
In the next hour, I want to go over this one comment. This one comment is 3 pages long.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need an hour to go over that one.
We would need an hour to go over that.
Nick Zervo sent me a whole thesis. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, this one's from Clara Cuzio. But yeah, it's really interesting. But I don't think we have enough time to go over it in 10 minutes.
And then the other thing is another question from I don't remember who asked the question. Jexy, I think, asked the question. Have you tried tapping into your raw consciousness with weed or edibles? The path maybe is different for everybody, obviously, but I feel that weed is more of a 3-dimensional type of substance, whereas DMT and ayahuasca are more of a inner self raw consciousness type of substance. So weed for me keeps me more tied to the 3rd dimension, and sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes I just want to just smoke some weed and chill and not worry about everything. I've never tried to work with weed in that deeper sense. And I usually just want to play video games when I'm smoking weed. I don't want to. I smoke weed when I don't want to think. I smoke weed when I don't want to work. I smoke weed when I need to just a little bit of blank space to separate the work that I'm doing. It may be different for you though. So I guess the question is, can weed tap you into your deeper raw consciousness?
Well, I know it certainly helps with meditation. That's the one thing that, that I can say positively about cannabis. It also, helps with pain but it is a very 3D kind of substance where, you can't mix it with psychedelics or it cheapens and dulls the psychedelic experience. And so that being said, I do see it as something separate from, what I consider psychedelic psychoactives. Kratom as well is another thing that's not psychedelic because it can't be psychedelic because it's a 5-HT2A antagonist, which blocks visions from occurring. And that's kind of a key thing with psychedelics is you have visions and there's hallucinatory effects. If you don't have those, then it's kind of erroneous to call it a psychedelic. I just had a good.
I think so too.
right
Everything
here.
has a purpose. Everything has
a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even alcohol. I mentioned I'll have a glass of wine with a meal sometimes, and that's cool. It's kind of chills out the evening when you do that. But I know that I can't look into a glass of wine and say, all right, I'm going to go into the deeper elements of myself. I know that I look at a glass of wine and go, all right, after I drink you, I'm going to go home and take a nap. So it's all, intention and perspective. Like, what's your intention with the particular substance you are using or working with?
If I drink you, I'm going to go home and take a nap. If I drink two or three of you, then Sheree's going to have to drive home.
Same with MDMA. Like, I don't look at MDMA and go, you know what, I'm going to get to the depths of consciousness. I think to myself, I'm going to take MDMA. I'm going to have fun all night long.
Yeah, I heard the other day about how MDMA quote unquote cures PTSD in just 3 sessions. With a therapist.
That's a good point you brought up.
And that's great. That is fantastic, but that's not getting to the deeper levels of the raw consciousness at all. That's very true. And a lot of people want to stick with the fun stuff and keep going over their PTSD stuff over and over and over again instead of reaching those deeper levels.
It kind of puts a Band-Aid over it.
Yeah.
But I went through a pretty traumatic upbringing, and Sheree actually figured this out the other day and shined this light, and she's like, you were self-medicating yourself with MDMA. All your MDMA use was to deal with your PTSD and traumas and things like that you were experiencing. No wonder you came out of it alive. Most people wouldn't have. Yeah. But it wasn't until the ayahuasca that I really went down in and actually dealt with it. Right. It was still there. But here's the downside of this that I realized in hindsight is that by using MDMA to treat the traumas as I was going through the traumas, what that resulted in is such a disconnection from the trauma itself that I thought, I'm bigger than that. It didn't affect me. I don't even have to worry about that. And then when it came up in the ayahuasca realm, I realized just exactly how tied into those traumas I was on a subconscious level. But I had been able to treat it on my conscious level completely and remove it from myself and just think to myself, well, I'm a man. It's brought me to who I am, et cetera, et cetera. But then dealing with it on the subconscious level was a completely different playing field. Now imagine if you're just dealing with it on the conscious level and it's out of your mind, you don't even realize it exists. Well, it's still tied in on the subconscious level, and it's still so just embedded within the subconscious. That's the root. You have to get to the root. Otherwise, it's always going to be there. Even if the tree's not there, that root is going to continue to spread and spread and spread and spread. But, the other thing with ayahuasca is a lot of people will call it medicine. And it is to a certain point. But again, what happens after you are healed? Right. Then it becomes a vehicle for consciousness exploration. And I think a lot of people fail to recognize that. And they feel like they have to go to a shaman, they have to go to the Amazon, they have to do all this. And that's why we're constantly like, no, # become your own shaman. Because we understand what happens when you become your own shaman. You heal yourself. But then you get into the consciousness exploration, which doesn't happen if you go down to the Amazon and drink once, and that's the end-all be-all of your ayahuasca experiences. So ultimately, it's about empowering you with the vehicle to be able to traverse to these deeper levels of consciousness, because all of the stuff that we talk about is real to us because we've seen it. And it's real to you guys and gals out there because you resonate with it. And some people have actually seen it too. But it becomes gnosis when you have seen it for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Presto One said, I recently had a powerful San Pedro experience where I felt jolts of energy running through my body, like a reflexive response. What do you make of this? Having jolts of energy running through your body while you're on San Pedro. I've got my own theory about it.
I don't like San Pedro. Frankly, I've worked with it a couple of times, and it was just like too long, and it was kind of like methy type of experience too. Like afterwards, I felt a little bit cracked out, for lack of a better term, after the fact. And I'd taken a mass dose, and I got pretty deep, but like 20 hours It's
Yeah,
like,
that's a little excessive.
yeah.
It is the most stimulating psychedelic, natural psychedelic that there is, and that's why that happened. Stick with the, calmer, more peaceful journeys that are about 6 hours or less, and you'll get a lot less of that jitteriness that you're describing.
I would say so too.
Yeah.
On that note, let's go to the other side. We will be right back. We've had some requests for some Alex Jones stuff, so we'll play that during the break.
The universe is a manifestation of consciousness. Yet, the universe is real enough to the conscious beings in it, which are as unreal as the universe itself. Therefore, all things are possible. Beyond the veil.
All right, jumping into hour number 3. Frank Castle is in the house, in the chat room. We got to get you on, Frank, sometime in the next, I don't know, next week maybe. I don't know if we're going to do a show tomorrow. I have a huge thing that I need to do during the day. Probably going to come back exhausted, but I'm probably going to be recharged by each and every one of you's loving energy out there. So we'll see how it goes. And if Frank's available last minute tomorrow, if we do decide to do a show, then we may be getting Frank on. So that'd be freaking awesome. It's been a while since we've had him on. Getting back to the raw consciousness topic, which is the theme of the entire show. The raw consciousness that you find only when you step beyond the veil. Mrs. Geo has some great comments. We only have a short segment.
Oh,
Remember
yeah,
that.
this is a short segment.
Yeah,
We'll take, I think, was it Elisa? Somebody wrote, why are psychedelics illegal? What, in your opinion?
It's a war on consciousness, no doubt about that. Like these expand minds. These help you to remove the AI programming. They help you to reach your raw consciousness element. For NPCs as well, it helps them to break some of the control factors that they are subjected to when they are connected to source, for example. So it breaks the illusion, and it helps each individual harness and understand their own sovereignty to whatever degree or level that sovereignty may exist for that particular individual. So it's something that's beneficial for literally everybody out there. Now, just a caveat out there are a few morons out there that can't handle their own reality, much less a reality on psychedelics. And we have had some callers like that. And up to this point, I've just kind of been like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. You ran out and you ate some mushrooms and you ran out into traffic and you woke up in an ambulance. Yeah, well, I'm so sorry about that. But now I'm like, okay, you're just a dumbass. Just stop doing it. And I would be much more compassionate about the situation if they weren't so gung-ho about stopping other people from doing psychedelics.
Right.
So if you had a bad psychedelic experience, it may not be for you, and that's perfectly fine. But it doesn't mean that it completely discounts the other majority of people out there who have had positive experiences, whether it's one experience or multiple experiences. So what I find most beneficial are the sessions where you are drinking for like a week, 2 weeks straight. And then, it comes to a point to where you drink, and then you need time to process it. So you take a few months, or it could even be longer than a few months to process all of that. And as I've said, this is a 10-year journey. And in that 10 years, there was a lot of information that I'm still processing now from 6, 7, 8 years ago. And it's becoming, it's unfolding itself in an entirely new perspective. So the ayahuasca lessons and understandings, they become part of you. And they begin to unfold in different perspectives as time progresses and as your perspective starts to change. And it's all symbols. And as I've said before, symbols have multiple meanings. And they are specifically designed to have multiple meanings based on the level of understanding of the initiate. So take that in the ayahuasca realm too. When you first start working with it, you may see certain symbols or metaphors that mean one thing. And then you reflect upon those 5 years later after you've had 100 sessions or 200 sessions or 500 sessions. And those first level symbols now have revealed an even deeper meaning. So it's a ever evolving type of understanding until you get to that place of raw consciousness and step beyond the veil. We'll be right back. Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from deception.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mystery speak again. Bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only your consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only your consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
You, the illuminated. Don't let them take that away from you. Don't let them call themselves the Illuminati. Don't let them masquerade with our light symbols. Take the light for yourself. Reclaim the light for yourself. You are the illuminated, not them. They're the dark ones. They're the dark ones posing as the light. They're not the light. They're not illuminated.
Right. We are the light. So let's get started on this.
This is a long one, but it's an awesome one.
But it's an awesome one. So I'll take it kind of a paragraph at a time. Chris, welcome to the real game. All the reality you experience throughout your waking day is the result of your own mind activity plus your inner core beliefs on what real reality is supposed to behave like. At all times, your subconscious software is listening to you, what you say about the state of your daily life, and most importantly, the chatter in your monkey mind. They determine the frequencies your electromagnetic body is emanating at all times. Based on that, the matrix graphics card renders what you call your now moment in reality. Every event taking place in your life at any given moment is being created or rendered several times per second for your raw consciousness to experience. It is what we know as the double slit experiment. Just a very sophisticated graphics card rendering at a very high resolution of pixels. Do you understand? There's only one consciousness rendering. All the rest are NPC, including your own body. The only thing that is real within the construct you live in is your awareness that you exist. You can shape and reshape whatever you want in your life experience. You've been doing it since you arrived into the Maya game. You have not been aware of that, but all the reality you've been experiencing all your life has been handmade by your subconsciousness, picking what your consciousness takes as truth at any given moment and comparing it with whatever settings you hold as core beliefs of what is or is not possible in your particular model of reality. The matrix graphics card machine that renders your reality is neutral, not polarized, if you want to think in Gnostic terms. The machine is your karma. It renders back into your experience whatever frequencies you are holding in your now moment.
Perfectly said.
That is how you bend reality. You imagine the final outcome, fine-tune yourself to the matching frequency, and there it is before your eyes. That is why Jesus said the heavens are inside of you, and also said, so within, so without. You hold good vibes, it renders good vibes. You dare to hold fear, sense of lack, sickness, and pain, and the machine projects that back to you. You can choose to project your loved ones totally healthy like Jesus did. You just have to find the right frequency pitch that matches the picture you're holding in your mind. This is done by controlling your emotions. And the most important rule of all, you have to be aware that you are what I name the master builder of the piece of the matrix that is being rendered for you to be immersed in.
Wait a minute. Okay, who's this person?
Clara Cuzio.
Clara?
Clary Cuzio.
Clary Cuzio.
All one word.
I need to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like me talking here. Like, totally resonating 100% with everything. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just really blown away at how on point this person is.
I love how he said the master builder of the piece of the matrix that is being rendered for you to be immersed in.
That's exactly what I've said over and over and over. We become the master builders of our own reality. And, hearkening back to Masonry, I think the progression of Masonry is that eventually you realize that you are the great architect. It is you. It is your consciousness. Masons would disagree with me on that, though. Like, I've had my head chopped off for saying stuff like this on Facebook. But then the true esoteric ones, like Robert Sullivan, is like, no, you got it. So, yeah.
All your world is a stage, a projection, just like you did with the Keys incident. You master the universe by mastering your inner core self. Everything around you are 3D composites in a tesseract-shaped matrix designed for your raw consciousness to be immersed in. That is why the Gnostics and the Masons have this thing about the cube. Your entire life is happening inside that cube. Maybe there are people outside of the cube watching your game, like in that book your wife read about the game of life. I don't know. I just wonder if I don't know what is outside the matrix. I hoped you knew it. Maybe I am alien shaped and this human shape is just a design that only exists within this matrix and not outside. That much I don't know. All I know is that my entire life has followed a very much alive and creative path than everybody I personally ever met. Now when I look back, I totally understand why. Maya is the fake construct. You call it the virus overlaid on top of Gaia, which is the original matrix. We call it Mother Nature, with which we are to be grounded. The most important thing in this reality is not money. It is the control over the energy of anyone that is a creator, a master builder, raw consciousness. They power the matrix. All this construct is powered by your own electricity. It is your personal graphics card rendering your personal settings of your imaginated now moment.
Yep. Remember we were saying this exact thing, same thing a few months ago.
Yep.
Awesome.
We're the batteries.
That this machine is using us as the batteries.
Right. Whatever you focus on in your mind with enough energy is bound to be rendered. The mirror ball effect. They power the matrix. All this construct is powered by your own electricity. Is your personal graphics card rendering your personal... Oh, I already read that. Whatever you focus... He didn't put any spaces here. So, whatever you focus on in your mind with enough energy is bound to be rendered with the mirror ball effect for you to experience. That is why you guys talk about non-duality, not polarizing in order to not see rendered. The moment you polarize, you take to one side, the one order to be rendered. This is a new level in the game, Chris. You can do a lot more than just fixing keys. You see, NPCs do not render or create. They are rendered along with the rest of the 3D happening around you. It is raw consciousness that holds the graphics card that is rendering the entire part of the matrix surrounding you at all times. Wow. The Illuminati are NPCs. That is why they need us to be
Yeah.
fed all the fake news about terrorists, etc. They need us to be oblivious to the fact that it is only when we believe that the TV news incident really took place, then it will have become a real thing that actually happened to people.
Ooh.
Oh, that's opening a whole new
Yeah, that's something
level.
we have speculated on
Yeah,
time and time again.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Take a better look at the delayed choice experiment. Raw consciousness is the creator of all reality, being rendered for it to experience. The machine has been created to serve us master builders. All around you is just 3D teasing you to focus your point of attention in following the white rabbit down some kind of hole, like flyers in your mailbox designed specifically to trigger the frequency for you to feel teased about its narrative. Like they say, energy flows where focus goes. You are inside a realm in some sort of energy or sandbox that much you know, floating in a ram stick, the infinite field, and it is up to you to focus on what you want to be experienced, rendered within it. As you follow along the Mason's rabbit hole, you come across symbols, shapes, and themes that they use. They may mean nothing to your Chris self, but they may mean a lot to your subconscious self that is always listening to your mind.
Interesting. I get the feeling like this guy's a Mason.
Yeah, me too. Whatever crosses the conscious blocking filter of true or false is a good to-go narrative or storyline bound to be rendered. Then you end up rendering stuff that has passed through your conscious blocking filter, and you are not even aware of it. The code arrived at the rendering software in a subliminal fashion, built in that geometry the Masons use. Those are programming codes, algorithmics, and functions.
Mm-hmm.
Narratives.
I've realized that time and time again. Mm-hmm. Geometry is the base of everything because geometry manifests itself into practical geometry, which we find in the physical realm. Mm-hmm. And on the deeper realm, this is made up of sacred geometry, which ultimately is the computer code itself, which is manifesting in front of us.
Right.
This guy's totally on point.
Mm-hmm. Narratives being rendered by us raw consciousness, for them New World Order Illuminati guys. As an unaware creator, one follows the storyline. They
use us to create reality based on our ability to create, but our disconnection from our understanding that we are the creators.
So yeah, the only way they're able to use that is to use us to do that is if we're completely unaware that we even have that ability.
Yes.
Yeah. As an unaware creator, one follows the storyline they Masons lay for us to decode. As we decode them, we construct them in our minds. We believe them to be real, and so we feed them 3D life in our share of the matrix. We have never been a victim of life. We have been victims of our unawareness.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. You end up working for them. Remember the 500 million on the guide stones in Georgia? I suspect those are the necessary observers or players or raw consciousness they need unaware to render the entire planet at all times.
I said that as well. I said 500 million is the amount of organic consciousness that exists in this particular field. And then other people chimed in and said, no, it's more like 144,000. And then we even got estimates as low as 10,000. So
right.
It's totally up for debate. But my first instinct was that 500 million mark, which is echoed in this guy's understanding of things too. So interesting. I mean, when you think about the dynamic, though, 7 billion or 8 billion or 9 billion, however many we're up to now, versus 500 million. I mean, we're talking about a fraction.
A fraction of a fraction.
Yeah.
Of the population, yeah. Everything else is just NPCs made to interact with the creator. Can be brother, son, friends, you know that. NPCs are the ones that die in tragedy, wars in the Middle East, etc. They're just 3D.
Right.
The demiurge.
I felt that, but I've never actually said that.
Yeah, I've never said that either.
Yeah.
But yeah,
because that doesn't happen to organic consciousness.
No, that kind of stuff. No.
I mean, maybe an organic consciousness gets swept into some of this stuff sometimes, but I think for the most part, it's a puppet show. Yeah, for the most part, I think so too. The demiurge or the machine needs game players to keep the simulation going on. When you don't manage your point of directed focused attention, you end up rendering unwanted frequencies. Mm-hmm. Then you become the Ouroboros, eating its own tail, fighting against itself, being defeated by its own reflections, trapped in its own creations. Up until today, when I saw this video, I have never found a creator like the one I came to understand I am. I mean, still alive.
All spiritual leaders and illuminated ones I've seen came to be proven NPC, just some very well elaborated narratives disguising the oneness, love, and light agenda in the matrix game of life.
Yep, exactly. I would go so far as to say that the gurus that are trying to create followers are the clear indication that it's an NPC guru or leader or something like that, which is why my focus is creating leaders, creating leaders, creating leaders.
Inspiring them, yeah. The oneness talk is the demiurge, what you call the hive mind. The NPCs share a one mind. A master builder runs on its own fuel. Is a solo flyer.
Yep.
So far,
Yep.
I have... Yep.
Wow, this dude's really put it all together here.
So far, I have failed to prove to myself that there is any other creator sharing my reality. Every single human being that I know seems to be unaware or totally oblivious of the games being played. I don't know the exact word, as it seems that every single human being I know lives by a sort of ISO script that is totally predictable by me, and I'm the only one aware of it.
You know what's funny?
That's so true.
Is I feel that, I mean, the only organic consciousness in my immediate sphere right now is Sheree and Brent Thomas.
Yeah.
That's it. Everybody else is long distance. Everybody else is, we have to connect through different means because
Digital
we're scattered all
yeah.
over the world. Frank and I were just talking about this just the other day, how we had to be strategically placed into different parts of the matrix to make the biggest impact. We couldn't be all in one particular group. So, yeah, it's funny how that happens. But no, you're absolutely right. Like it seems like 99.99999% of the people I meet out there, at least in real life, are NPCs. And
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
It's this is why I've learned to be a chameleon, and I've learned to, when I'm in a certain circle, interacting with that certain circle, I don't drop all this stuff on them.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and I often make the joke, like, I hope that they don't look me up on Facebook and YouTube, because if they do, then that's it.
Yep.
Because this is where you get my raw consciousness.
He doesn't hold back.
Right.
Here. I don't know how to put it into English words. He's not even an original English speaker.
Wow.
So,
well,
yeah.
he's put it into great words so far.
Yeah. Therefore, throughout my life, people around me always believe that I am smarter or luckier than the others and my friends. It has never been about me being smarter than the others. I am the creator. I am tapped into a different origin of awareness. I have access to the master field of information. I have imagination. They are just 3D graphics running some very sophisticated script in order to mimic human behavior. They cannot imagine. If you really are raw consciousness, what I call a master builder, then you'll come to understand what I'm talking about. When you come to realize this, I mean, prove it to yourself. Life totally upgrades. There are many ways to hack into the software running the quality of your renderings, your creations, the subconscious self software. Remember, everything in here is the construct. Find the best way to hack into yours, or best yet, assume the same perspective you did when you found yourself rendering the keys incident, and build up the best creations for yourself and the ones you love. We are the creators. I totally recommend you this Netflix movie trailer. You will know why and why you will watch the movie.
What's the Netflix?
It's Other Life on
Other
Netflix.
Life.
Yeah, Other Life. We're going to have to watch that.
Yes. First of all, bravo
Thank
for
you.
that awesome,
That was-
insightful email.
Wow.
I resonate with that 99.99999%.
Yeah, me
and
too.
The only part I don't resonate with is that there's only one creator in this matrix. And I think that's what he was alluding to, that he has yet to be able to identify other creators within the matrix. But maybe I just misunderstood that part of it.
I think he just meant the same thing that you said, basically, like nobody that he knows
Oh, okay.
is also raw consciousness
Right.
or organic consciousness. And so it's really hard. He can't say with all certainty that, he's not the only one.
Well, the bounds have been broken, and the ante has definitely been raised
Significantly.
as far as changing physical matter now. So this is the new focus, the new goal, and the next level. And it's funny because I just did a video where in the video I had mentioned, it wasn't the focus of the video, but I had mentioned that I've been working with ayahuasca so long that I feel like I've come to a point to where I go back and recharge, but it's not really, I've reached those next levels. And then as soon as I say that, like as soon as I put that out there, boom, another level pops up in my sphere. And it's like, no, 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 no. Maybe it was that feeling of coming to a place to feeling like, okay, I need to really digest everything that I've learned up to this point and understand it. And I feel like I'm at the pinnacle now. That was the catalyst for, okay, now you're ready for the next level. So consider that too. It's funny. Things don't really work in a logical manner. Sometimes they work completely cyclical, and sometimes they work completely backwards and antithetical to the logical mind itself.
Well, and sometimes you have to go around and through, and it seems like the journey itself takes many twists and turns, and before reaching the same place that you think you would be able to get to in a straight line, but no. Those twists and turns provide the information that you need to be able to complete your quest.
Kimberly had brought up, what do you think about the magnetic pole shift? And this harkens back to what I was talking about, the Mandela effect earlier, and the fact that time seems to be speeding up. Somebody had left a comment on that YouTube channel, and I think this is kind of related to this, that the Schumann resonance has actually been speeding up. And so they said, hey, it's possible that the seconds are actually moving faster because the Schumann resonance is moving faster. Now, when it comes to magnetic pole shifts, I don't know, because the way I see this as a holographic matrix that we're actually inside of a computer program. Rather than being inside of any type of space or anything like that. We exist in the real world. We are essentially hooked up into pods, or something like that. Some people are hooked into pods. Others have brought themselves into this actual machine. But I think of things on a more real level, a more physical level than a spiritual level. Or an energetic level, let me put it like that. Because at the end of the day, outside of the matrix, I feel that we have physical bodies. And that's the point to get back to first and foremost. Once we get to that point, then we start asking the questions all over again. Okay, cool. So I experienced this matrix. I'm back in the real world. Is this real world now just another illusion on top of an illusion on top of an illusion? I got to take things one step at a time. But so when you think about things like magnetic pole shift, for example, are we looking at different frequencies and energy changes within a computer system itself? Like, how does that concept apply to a holographic simulation? And does that concept even have any relevance in a computer simulation? The Schumann resonance, on the other hand, can be the frequency of the CPU that is actually powering the machine. And so we see it going up and up and up and up and up. I wonder if that is the result of deploying more programs within the matrix, just like when you run your computer at a higher with more computer softwares, or if you're doing video editing, for example, and you've got like a whole bunch of footage in there, and you're adding more and more and more and more and more, and your CPU starts to go up and up and up and up as you are doing that. Is the Schumann resonance perhaps a byproduct of the machine upping the resources because so many of the creating energies, the organic consciousness energies, are coming to the realization of their own divinity, and so the matrix is having to deploy more NPCs, it's having to deploy more political theater and things like that to keep us tied in to the machine, in an attempt to try to suppress that divinity more and more and more. But so if you apply that same line of thinking to the shifting of the poles as well, the magnetic pole shifts, can it be a signal of something going on in the machine? But, there was a little flat earth debate in the chat, which, it always seems to, somebody always jumps in and says, hey.
There's always at least
one. Yeah,
one.
somebody jumped in and said, hey, guess what? Oh, you know what's really beyond the veil? Flat earth. And it's like, no, that's like several steps before the veil. Like, you got to go through flat earth first.
2 years ago.
And then once you go through flat earth, then you come to the holographic realization of reality. But what it did for me personally is it helped me to fully understand, to question the entire construct in and of itself, which I never would have thought. I mean, I was given all of this. That's not the right word. I tapped into myself and I pulled out all of this gnosis about the computer nature of this reality, the code in the background, and things like that. The shaman have been doing this for centuries, and pulling out the digital nature of reality and understanding it. But we have to live on a globe, right? Like, we have to be floating through outer space. We have to be. I mean, that's just like, that's the one common truth that binds us all together, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe, you know, being able to question that for me personally, when I did, then it started putting all the different ayahuasca experiences into perspective. And it started to make me realize, oh, the computer program, computer resources, NPCs, et cetera, and seeing this from a computer simulation perspective. So it was pretty interesting. There was a point that I was getting to with that, but we're hitting the break, so I'll make the point on the other side. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
My dear traveler, you are a divine being,
an all-powerful creator,
and within you dwells infinite wisdom. All that is left is to step beyond the veil.
A little political theater comedy for you during the break, and it's the Trump dimension. That's Alex Jones's hyperspace, the Trump dimension.
The Trump dimension. That makes a lot of things make sense.
It's funny, but yeah, let's get back into it. So the point that I was making is questioning the entire nature of reality. Once you do that, then it all starts to come together like one big body of work that now starts to reveal itself over and over and over again. And back to what the listener was talking about in his email about the symbols unfolding themselves in the path of Masonry. The one thing that I'm a little confused about is he saying that the Masons are behind creating the simulation, or is he saying that the Masons are leaving clues and the path of Masonry actually takes you closer out of the matrix?
Yeah,
than it does
that's what he's saying. That the Masons leave breadcrumbs in the form of symbols, yes, and allegories to help you get out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So leaving the breadcrumbs,
or at least to understand it better.
Yeah. I was just having a conversation about the breadcrumbs with somebody just the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was on a show or something. I don't remember. But they said, I was talking to Nick Zervos, and we were talking about breadcrumbs, and I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, we would leave ourselves breadcrumbs in previous incarnations if we had incarnations where we could tap into the divine element of ourselves. But ultimately, I think that we came here as a team, and a team like an army. I mean, we came here like an army. Like, there's probably 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. Maybe that's where that 10,000 number comes from, that people were feeling. Like, maybe there's 500 million organic consciousness within the matrix, but there's 10,000 or 144,000 or, a smaller number like that came here on a mission to help the other organic consciousness that is trapped, and subsequently help the NPCs too by helping them to fix their world too. But that we left breadcrumbs for ourselves and for each other. And I think Terrence and Dennis left a huge, huge, huge breadcrumb for us.
In La Chorrera.
Yeah. And it was funny because it happened just a few years before we were both born. So it was almost as if, like, okay, we've identified the object. We know where the object is. We're going to create a record of this object within the matrix itself, deploy the next wave who's actually going to activate that object and reset the son of a bitch. So,
well, and according to this guy's theory about how things are rendered, it was only because Terrence and Dennis rendered that reality, it made us able to render that same reality and then expand on that rendering and turn it into something even more. And if they hadn't have rendered that reality, that breadcrumb would have been lost.
Yeah.
So,
and it was back to what I was saying earlier about understanding who you are and how others recognize it within you. One thing that really helped to bring this understanding of this object into gnosis is when Dennis was asked about it on several interviews for the last 10 years, and he just never talked about it. And on the last show we did with Dennis, we were talking about it, and I said, look, I think we need to go get this object. And he perked up, and he said, yeah, here's how you do it. For the first time. Like, many people have asked him about this before, but for the first time. And it almost felt as if there was like a baton being passed, and then others were writing in and saying, hey, you do realize he just passed the baton over to you guys. So that also brought more focus upon that particular object and that particular mission to find that object. And I know exactly what that object does. It either resets this back to a previous time, but then we also have to consider all the data that's been accumulated between that time and now, like all the lives that have been lived and experiences of NPCs and things like that. If we reset the matrix back to that particular time, then we lose all of that data. How can we maintain that data? Perhaps this object is actually an antivirus program that has to be activated from within to start to defect or de-infect the matrix system itself, which is infected with the virus that has affected everything. So maybe it's not a reset point to where like we actually reset time, but rather we begin to unravel an antivirus that works its way throughout the entire matrix and just makes things better like that. What do you think?
Well, let's look at what they said about the object. They said that it was a very powerful frequency that it would cause you, and when you touched it, it would cause you to have complete understanding of everything in this matrix. Everything. You would just have pure understanding, and you would understand why everything works the way it does. And I'm wondering, maybe it's that place in the control panel where it's showing all of the functions that are taking on, that the computer is doing right now, and how much percentages and things like that. And it's kind of like that where you can selectively reset certain functions, throw antivirus software in there, do whatever you need to do. I don't know, but
that's pretty interesting. More will be revealed about the object for sure. I've always looked at it like a system restore point.
Yeah,
like
me too.
You reset it to the system point before infection. That's the way that I deal with a virus on my computer. I just either system restore it. If I can't system restore it, then I just reinstall the whole damn operating system. It's much easier to just wipe the drive and reinstall the operating system than it is to try to go in, find the virus, remove the virus, go through all that painful and tedious task. But then again, if you had some data on that hard drive that is very important and vital, and you have to maintain that data, then you may take the route of trying to actually remove the virus instead of just wiping the entire drive altogether. So that's why I'm wondering all the data from the NPCs, if it is a vital part of this.
Yeah, I think it is to a certain extent. Because,
or maybe I'm just romanticizing the whole thing, and I'm trying to, see more sentience within the NPCs than actually exists. But it's, from my divine consciousness element of myself, I feel compassion, love, and empathy for NPCs because they are also equally as sentient. And just because they were created, it doesn't mean that they lack sentience. It doesn't mean that they haven't achieved a level of individuality. And again, this matrix is, like I've said, it's very, very real to them. And because it is very, very real to them, we're dealing essentially with a real world. Just because we created that machine, it doesn't mean that that takes away from the validity of the realness of the consciousness that we created, that is experiencing incarnation in this particular matrix.
Yeah, they may not feel the same emotional depth as we do, and they may not have the same consciousness level as we do, but they are still sentient and they are living. Whether that's a digital life or a physical one, they're still living. And they do have, I think a lot of them do have past lives. And I mean, I see this in really horrible children Like I saw this video on YouTube of this kid, and he was beating this woman up with his mom and kicking her while she's already being sat on by his mom, and he's cussing at her and all this, and I'm like, okay, he's too young to have that in his mind, like he wants to hurt somebody and all of that. And I'm thinking maybe he's an NPC who had a past life where he was a really violent person, and it's gotten to the point where it's shooting out NPCs so quickly that they're remembering, they're maintaining the psychological profile that they had in the previous life.
Interesting.
And that's going to make society even more messed up.
Interesting. And bringing in some of the defects from previous virus
NPCs.
Infections. That is actually extremely insightful. I've never thought about it like that. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier about this very topic. It's funny how things they start to come full circle. Anyways, we have about 15 minutes left. I don't want to stick too much into this because these are like the deeper stuff that we probably should be talking about.
Yeah, we should probably just
ourselves and not on our show.
Yeah. So I'll save it. I'll save the rest of what I was going to say about that for later, for pillow talk between husband and wife.
That's pillow talk in our
that's
house.
our pillow talk is. So what do you think this reality is?
Well, I mean, I guess I can't say this. There was a 12-year-old girl who tried to murder her friend as a sacrifice to Slender Man. And when I saw a picture of Slender Man, I thought about the spiders first and foremost. And I wonder if the Slender Man manifestation was actually an NPC manifestation of the spiders that work in the background. And she somehow was able to communicate or contact one of these things. Or maybe it was just a complete delusion, one or the other. But they gave her 40 years in a mental hospital. And people were debating on Facebook, like, well, is that right to give a 12-year-old 40 years in a mental hospital? And my thought was, well, if there is an NPC body, I didn't vocalize this. I was thinking this. If there's an NPC container that has been manifested with such a defect at 12 years old that it would commit a horrible act like this, especially based on no previous trauma. It's not like this was a child sex slave or a child abuse victim or anything like this. Was just a normal suburban girl that decided to go murder her friend and sacrifices to Slender Man. Can that consciousness ever be changed? Or that NPC ever be changed throughout, or is 40 years away from the rest of everybody else the safest and best thing to do for the, I don't know. It's a pretty deep thought. There was another girl, she was 9 years old. I don't remember her name. This was back in the 70s. And she decided that she was going to go and kill one of her friends. And she actually went back to the body after she had committed the murder, and she carved her initials in the body. And this is like from a documentary, like Evil Children or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. But she wound up in a mental hospital or in some kind of, she was institutionalized for like 30 years. And now she's out. And to the best of my understanding, she's living a regular life. But then I also have to think in the back of my head, somebody like that, does that ever go away from them? Because she could be living a regular life, but then you hear about these stories like like the grandmother in Germany, the cannibal grandmother, who was like luring people into her house and killing them and eating them. So I have to wonder, like, does this girl who is now like 50, 60 years old have a basement full of bodies down there? And if so, could that have been prevented by keeping her institutionalized for the rest of her life? By all facts as I know them, no, she does not. And she has lived a normal life after being removed from the institution. But can that happen? Like, what happens? Like, how is there such a deep defect within somebody when they're like 10, 11, 12 years old that causes them to commit something like that? And is that something that is embedded with them throughout the rest of their incarnation here? Something to ponder.
Well, and if the NPCs are able to retain at least their psychological traits from life to life, then it totally explains psychotic children and children that just are bad eggs, as older people would call them. Oh, that's just a bad egg. No, it's an NPC who's been who's had the same psychological profile and has worked really well for the AI. So the AI has allowed it to continue harvesting that same psychological profile throughout each life. And I think that stays with a person. I don't think you can
That's
kill.
pretty insightful, bringing in the psychological profile of an NPC from a different life. I'd never considered that, so well done.
Oh, thank you.
Oh. You're always very insightful.
But they don't have an awareness of that.
Right.
They don't have. I've never spoken to an NPC who's even interested in past lives.
Right.
They don't think about that. And if they do, I think I've met one, and she focused on being Cleopatra in a past life.
Yeah, usually I remember hearing all that. I was
New
Cleopatra
agey
in a past life, or I was this, or I was that, and yeah. No.
No.
Wow, this has
been
it gets pretty deep here. So
always in the third hour, it gets really deep.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But I have an important thing I have to do tomorrow all day long.
We would totally do overtime.
Yeah, I have to be there at 9:30
somewhere.
in the morning,
Yeah.
and I slept most of the day today, so I don't even know if I'm going to sleep tonight.
Well, and you drank too much coffee too.
I drank too much coffee. Well, you're the one that gave it to me, so
Oh yeah, that's right.
I can blame you for putting it on my desk here.
Well, I won't make you coffee.
So we have a few minutes left, and ladies and gentlemen, I want to say again, thank you so much for tuning in, spending time with us, sharing your energy in the chat room, and contributing to the energy field that we are building here at Beyond the Veil. And like I said, we weren't going to do a show tonight, but we understand that it's not just a show, it's a community. And because of that, we will want to create the space to have the community. And so tomorrow night, I'm probably going to be exhausted when I get home, but we may still do a show. I'm going to push myself to do it. So because of that very fact, because of each and every one of you out there, we don't want to let you guys and gals down out there.
No, we don't. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we did a show tonight, even though we're both exhausted. It's been a long week. We've had a lot
Can I have that
going on this week. Yes?
Let's see.
If there's any more questions?
Yeah, well, we have a bunch of material for tomorrow at least.
Yeah, we do.
So, oh wow. It just goes on and on and on and on. So I guess we'll just leave it at this. Remember who you are. And it's a step, it's a journey. And there's one step after the other after the other. As soon as you come to the realization that you figured it all out, then that's when more will be revealed. So sometimes we have to stay on certain levels for a certain period of time. I was on several different levels for a long, long, long time until I was able to see more and more and more. And I'm really, really excited as to where this journey is heading. And with all of these awesome comments and questions and everything like that, it's remarkable. I mean, think of like Terrence McKenna's journey, Dennis McKenna. They actually physically had to go around the world to sit down and talk to people. And they still couldn't reach as many people as we can in this modern age. We have a huge, huge, huge advantage that no other generation has had, and that's the ability to interact and connect worldwide. I mean, this person that sent in this message was from what, all he said was that English wasn't his first language, but he's from somewhere else on the other side of the world. We've got people from Australia tuning in. We've got people from America. We've got people from Europe. We've got
Everywhere.
people literally all over the world. And for the first time, we're able to all connect together, put our pieces of the puzzle together, and really understand the raw consciousness which lays beyond the veil. So eternal thanks and gratitude and love to each and every one of you.
We love you guys very much.
Yes.
So
what's on the twin agenda for tomorrow?
Hopefully getting through the other half of these questions, because we've got stuff about time machines, and how time itself can't slow down. Time quakes.
Any bots? Somebody said any bots in here posing, and I would say yes, there are some bots. If you go to our videos, you'll see like 3 or 4 thumbs down on each video. That's an NPC that is subscribed to the channel. and has decided to subscribe just for the simple fact of thumbing it down. It's kind of
Right.
funny though.
It is kind of
you're going to
funny.
subscribe to our channel just to be notified of new videos so you can
So you
thumb
can
it
thumb
down.
it down.
It's like,
wish I had
wow,
the
how bad do you have to suck
Well,
in order
I-
to do that?
I wish I had the time to choose whether or not to subscribe to somebody's channel just so I can thumbs down the video.
Right.
I wish I had the time to hate somebody that
Oh,
much.
and then the other day I said in a video that we received 71 comments from this person. No, it was more like 93 comments because it just got more and more and more and more ridiculous. But this person was just yelling, "You're stupid, you're fat, you're this and that, and blah, 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 blah." One guy told me the other day, he goes, "Quit eating swine and ejaculating." And I'm like, what? I'm like, dude,
yes, in the same sentence.
quit eating swine and ejaculate. Now I can't get the thought out of my mind of him like sitting there with animal porn in the background, looking at a ham sandwich and praying to God and going, "God, please give me the strength to not eat that ham sandwich and ejaculate." I'm like, because when I see stuff like that, I see it as like projection of the individual. So where the hell, like, how does that even come up? Like, quit eating swine and ejaculating. Like, does he eat swine and then
Ejaculate?
So, and this guy
thing?
is like he used to be a pretty well respected researcher.
Yeah, that's
not
the
anymore.
saddest part about it.
He attacked us before, and I guess a meth binge or something, whatever his problem is.
Yeah.
And
It's sad.
we just ignored it, and then he issued an apology, and we were like, "Oh, hey, that's cool, dude. We understand. We don't take things personally like that."
Yeah.
So I deleted the comment because I didn't want to embarrass him or him being embarrassed by his words later on and going, "Oh, what did I do on this last binge
Right.
here?" But it's funny how the NPCs malfunction.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's sad.
They malfunction in the funniest ways. I mean, it's like you watch these videos sometimes and you've got these people like twitching on all these different like bath salts and stuff like that. And it's like,
Flocka and
that's
stuff.
an NPC malfunction 100%, but they're just like malfunctioning out of control. And you see this in Hollywood too, where they've replaced some of the actors and politicians and things like that with clones.
Mm-hmm.
And clones are like copies of NPCs, so they're like double NPCs. So you take an NPC NPC container, and you clone that, and now you have a clone of an NPC. And these things are just like twitching and doing all this stuff. That if it was a serious problem happening to a real consciousness, a divine consciousness, then yeah, that's a serious problem. But you have it happening to the clone NPCs, and it's. I hate to say it's funny because I feel empathy still on the level for any being that exists, but it's kind of funny to watch them malfunction. Stop eating swine and ejaculating. Those two don't even connect.
They don't
like
go
what
together.
This is two completely different thoughts here. Like where anyways.
And like, what would you be ejaculating from? Eating the swine? Like, is that how your biology works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So
we are coming up to the end of the show in
lots of love to
a
you
minute
guys.
and a half.
Thank you so much.
So the power is inside of each and every one of you. That's the end of this particular journey. After that begins an entirely new journey. So don't think that it's the end of the journey. It's the end of this particular journey. You realize all of this manifests from inside of you, and you harness those powers from within. Once you do, then the game changes. And now you start changing reality etherically first, changing the outcome of situations, then actually reaching in and actually changing physical matter.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, at that point, what kind of
Anything's
bounds can be
possible.
broken.
Yeah,
But
anything's
it's
possible.
important to divest yourself of all of your
Mhm.
vices and superfluities. Divest yourself of all of the AI programs, because if you don't have a pure heart, if you haven't divested yourself from your ego,
Mhm.
then number one, you're setting yourself up for failure. But number two, you're actually still working for the AI machine if you are attempting to move forward without going through the processes of divesting yourself from all of the AI program, because then you're just being manipulated by the AI program. And there's manipulation around every single turn. There's manipulation in hyperspace. There's manipulation in the real world. There's manipulation in the spiritual realm. There's manipulation in the meditation realm. The only place that there is not manipulation is within the raw consciousness that you find beyond the veil. I love that. I'm going to start using that all the time now. The raw consciousness you find beyond the veil. I said that just at a whim the other day, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm going to end every show with that. So love you, and we'll see you hopefully tomorrow night. And if not, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. We know that if you like, comment, and subscribe, you are divine consciousness. You're not an NPC. And hit the little bell if you're on that next level and you want to be notified of each and every video and show. So thank you for joining us. Love you.
Because the one you love right now, you never know when the last time's going to be. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow night.